One final day of groups with endless possibilities. Welcome everyone back to the unofficial LPL English broadcast as we look to round out the double round robin week fiesta that has come across the LPL so far, but it is finally time to bring home the entire group, figure out who's going to Group Ascend, who's going to Group Nirvana, and who has to battle it out in another series to do so. But I will not be bringing all of us home here in the group stage alone. I am joined by the one, the only, Bloxer beside me once more. Glad to be back on the cast with you, my friend. And we are starting out with a banger here. Before we even jump into any format stuff, it's going to be RNG and TT off the bat. I mean, couldn't think of a better start.
No, these teams have been swinging at each other for a little while. It's been a crazy group just in general, and these two teams right now are sat in those bottom two spots, but that doesn't mean that they've looked like bad teams. We've had a lot of groups where the bottom two spots are looking like they cannot compete with the top two. Not the case in this group at all.
But we got to remind everybody at home, Bloxer, what they're playing for. And it will be a bit tricky, but we're going to walk everyone through it nice and slow. So let's talk about the format we're currently at. We're going left to right, traditional as possible. On the left side, you see all of the groups that we have brought to the table for Split 2. Keep an eye on Group B, obviously the one we're going to be focusing on today. Top 2 out of every single one of these groups promotes straight to Group Ascend. So you've been paying attention to the LPL, you know teams like JDG, IG. You talk about Top Esports. You've got teams as well like Weibo and BLG. All of those groups I named, there are in Group Ascend. 4th place goes straight to Group Nirvana. And you don't want to be in Nirvana. We'll spoil a little bit. Bloxer will tell you a little bit why later. The 3rd place matches are going to be the most unique ones. So everyone at 3rd does not go straight to Nirvana. They go to a qualifier double elimination best of 3 bracket where the top 2 teams out of that very qualifier promote themselves to round out Ascend, and the bottom 2 sink down, turn to Nirvana. Now, Bloxer, why is it so critical you avoid Group Nirvana?
Group Nirvana comes with the horrible threat that maybe you do not get to play in split number 3. Maybe your entire season is just done. You can see it right here in the bottom right hand side of your screen. Eliminated for split 2 and 3. That is a horrible proposition for any of these teams, especially considering what the LPL format this year has been, right? You get to play 3 best of 5s in summer if you're not a particularly good team, and then you're done. You come into this, you play your group stage matches, immediately into Group Nirvana, and then potentially just eliminated and you're done for your entire season. It's crazy at the end of summer when teams that don't make it out of groups are like, we've got months to wait. Well, this is almost 6 full months of you just sat there not being able to play. It's really not fun for any of these teams, and they're going to be desperately trying to avoid that. Desperately trying to avoid, indeed. And it's what makes this very group that we are looking at so intriguing. But just in general, the intriguing factor that knowing some of these teams we've been watching, a lot of them we've been rooting for, pulling for, could be done with Tier 1 competitive play for the all of 2025 so early is what makes the LPL so special. But let's focus in on our group and why this is the group of life so far in the LPL as we take a look at it. Everyone bring your eyes up towards Group B, Bloxer, where it was the only group to not have an undefeated and an 0-3 team in it after the first round robin. Exactly. Every other group sat there with somebody having taken all of their games, chilling at the top, pretty confident that that's going to be at least one of the teams that goes through. Not necessarily that they're going to end as that top team, but you can be pretty confident in that. Not the case right here in Group B. Group B has been a just fiesta. It's been teams taking games off of each other left and right. RNG grabbing a game against AL. I don't think anybody was expecting that one, but it really has just been a group where it feels like anybody can come out on top of this one. And that also means that anybody could end up in that 4th place spot right now with the threat of, being eliminated for split 3. And also for Group B, right? You now know the fates of some of these other groups and how definitely in an intriguing fashion a couple of them have played out. So you already are looking forward to who you potentially could be playing outside of Group C, which will be the final group to conclude it. I misspoke earlier. But let's dive into our first game here finally. We'll start by introducing arguably the hottest team coming out of Group B after the first round robin. It is Royal Never Give Up, RNG, Xiaoshu in the top lane, Milky Way in the jungle spot, Tangguan in mid lane, and the
MVP of that last game for RNG, Jachi at 80 carry, and Niket for support. Rounding out a team, Bloxer, we came out of split 1 talking about how we wanted to see them scale up into split number 2, and so far, at least in one match, we could say that definitely was accomplished.
Yeah, they've been looking a little bit better so far in this split number 2. Split 1 was terrible for RNG. They don't make it out of their group, Group D. I mean, they had a good couple of teams in it. They were up against some of the legends, Ninjas in Pajamas, IG. They were in that group with them, but the fact that they only won one of those best of 5s really was not a good show for them, whereas this time around, they've been looking a lot better. It's been really nice to see, and it feels like this team's being able to get itself a little bit more of an identity going at this point.
And that's what's most important, right? Is finding identity and finding specifically players that you want to consistently go to play towards. It might be a guy like Jachi. We won't get too ahead of ourselves, though, because we do have to introduce the kind of flip side of this momentum debate that we've been having with Group A. And as much as it pains me, it is the Thunder Talk squad. Before we get too much into it, let's introduce the lineup as formal as we possibly can. Thunder Talk Gaming, obviously rounded out by the Darling squad from split number 1. Top lane, it's Hoya, Beichuan in the jungle, Setab in the mid lane position, and then 1xN Feather duo to round out this bottom lane that has been, like I kind of alluded to, the opposite of teams in this group like RNG and Ultra Prime, the way they've started out their split 2 campaign.
Yeah, they managed to pick up a win up against RNG in the first round, but then they lose in just convincing fashion to both AL and Ultra Prime, and it just looks like this squad isn't able to quite play in the same way that they were in Split 1. In Split 1, this team were the most fun to watch, I think. Their laning phases were pretty good, but it was the team fights where this team really shined. Their just willingness to go flying in off of the slightest engage. The second somebody went in, everybody would go in, and it was just so much fun to watch them. It feels like there's a little bit more hesitancy, and even when they are finding these team fights, the macro on this team just isn't quite the same as it was. They're not getting these big advantages through lane swaps in the early game either, and it has just led to Thunder Talk not feeling like the same team that we got to see in that Split 1.
Yeah, it's just complete. Everything is discombobulated at this point. Yeah. But for Thunder Talk, the shining star on this team, you saw it with some of the MVP voting that came across from split number 1. It was 1xN and his loyal partner Feather. But we're going to focus in on the marksman view marksman matchup because 1xN, while he's got the pedigree from split 1, I would argue there are few marksmen right now in the LPL coming in to their second round robin as hot as Jachi did with that Kaisa performance against AL.
Yeah, Jachi looked so good up against AL, was really able to just carry RNG through that one, and has just been looking really solid in all of his matchups too. It's not just that he's been looking good specifically on this Kaisa. He's been having a great time of it on pretty much all of these champions. The Kalista also been very fun to watch too. 1xN, he was the most fun player on the most fun roster for us previously. We've been joking about how we always have a head-to-head graphic about him, but it's because he makes these matchups about him every time. What he can do to carry the team through. This is another part of what's going wrong for Thunder Talk. They haven't been playing around this guy enough. They've not been opening up to be able to carry them through, and it's been part of why they just haven't been able to find the success that they were previously.
And it has been, you know, I do want to say for Thunder Talk, some of it is just kind of the price you pay with the current state of League of Legends. I think, you know, we'll get into it more once we get to this game number 1 and stuff like that. But we do, you know, the fact that we play so heavily for grubs now, right, in that early phase you see in the LPL, you constantly are feeling comfortable leaving 80 carries in the bottom lane, kind of just farming it out.
Yeah.
Getting resources, but not like a big lead like you're talking about. And then you also have the fact that when I said he places an Ashe game in the first round, it's hard to really have impact on Ashe the way we expect 1xN to have it. So I do want to give, you know, a bit of credit back over to 1xN, but you talked about it, Bloxer. The main point here for Thunder Talk is that they have looked like a very different team from Split 1, and it has hit nobody harder potentially than me. I think, you know, I'm going to, I know we teed up this graphic. It's hilarious. We ran it when I first stepped onto Split 2. Oh, actually, hold on. Let's talk about the predictions first before we get into your Bloxer. And as we talked about this group of B being the group of life, I think the predictions across the board reflected in the fact that this may be the most scattered set of group predictions that I've seen all week long.
Oh yeah, the predictions have been pretty much everybody saying the exact same thing the whole way through. There's been a couple changes between people, but really not too many. the fact that there are 3 different teams being predicted as the top of the group right here, and 3 different teams being predicted coming out at the bottom of the group is crazy right now. And the difference with it, right? Producer Bread right here has RNG coming out on top. Me and Greg got RNG coming out on the bottom. Nobody knows what's going to happen with this group.
One of you two is going to be happy by the end of this one. That is the important thing. And as intriguing as Bread's predictions are, I respect him sticking to his guns, because I was a man who stuck to my guns for one of these squads in the group, and yeah, it burned me. It burned me. So the extra context coming in this one is I had the pleasure. Bloxer was on one of those games series with me, but yeah, Thunder Talk, when they 3-0'd out of groups, I was a part of the cast on every single one of those, and then when they played in playoffs, I was not a part of those casts, so I held the 100% series win rate. We ran this graphic the last time I was covering Group B, and then Thunder Talk proceeded to lose every game that I watched them play. So I hope we get another X out and we can bump that win rate up. I certainly predicting that to happen out of the group, but it definitely burns. It definitely stings a little bit, but you always got to be able to make fun of yourself, Bloxer. That's an important thing to do.
Look, if I had a 60% win rate in solo queue, I'd be happy, all right? I think 60% is pretty good right now. It's not bad, and it gives them a little bit more than a 50% chance right here to beat RNG. I think that is the key thing right here. As much as we would love to see Thunder Talk win just for the memes of it, they really need to pick up this win versus RNG for the standings. The head-to-head is the most important thing for determining seeding if you end up with the same amount of wins overall. And having both of the wins versus RNG would pretty much lock Thunder Talk away from being that bottom place team in the group.
Yeah, that's a very important point to make. We're going to keep preaching it all broadcast long, that while every game obviously has impact on standings, usually when we talked about groups A and D, it was oh, okay, well, BLG and Weibo, they're going to be playing each other for first and second. That's the important matchup, right? It was teams playing for first and second, teams playing for third and fourth. But especially depending if Thunder Talk come out on top here against RNG, you will be looking at a standings where we have a 2-1, 2 2-2s, and then a 2-1, 2-2, 2-1, and then 1-3. Like, there's just so much range for this, and it makes it even more special, Bloxer, that this group in particular, outside of AL, has so many people, rookies, newer players to the league that we talked about, we wanted to hype up, and specifically for RNG, it's been guys like Milky Way and Jachi that have really impressed in these recent games.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that RNG have been playing, it's been very much about what you can do through the jungle to facilitate your ADC. And this kind of playstyle, I think, is very strong in the meta at the moment. You've got incredibly high priority ganking junglers all over the meta at the moment. The Vi is the top one, but things like the Sejuani have just been taking over, and they allow you to very much look towards one of your lanes and see just how much you can do for them. Like you said, in the meta at the moment, a lot of teams are just looking towards playing the top side. Grubs not really bothering too much about what the ADC is doing for themselves. Not this squad. They have been actually putting a lot of focus down into this bottom lane, seeing what they can do for Jachi to get him ahead. They've been picking him aggressive lane matchups. Like I said, the Kai'Sa, a really good look for him right here. So it's going to be very interesting in the draft, seeing if Thunder Talk decide to actually allow that one over, or if they think that's going to be ban-worthy.
It's going to be an interesting development to see, because, part of the Thunder Talk problems we've had on the flip side once more, some of it has been the drafting, right? In particular, the game against AL comes to mind for me when we look at the solo lanes, right? Like, you have Hoya, who's playing Mbessa games. Seitab was nearly undefeated on this Akali, and they end up role swapping out of it. You know what? We'll get into that when we get into draft here. The important thing here is to watch the very coveted walkouts that we know for the LPL. We are still at the LNG home arena for now. Did not help them out too much, unfortunately, for that squad, but at least some other people will find some life onto this stage.
Yeah. Look, they made it close in their final game. It wasn't the worst game I'd seen from them. Yeah, LNG's been having a pretty bad time, but that's again what makes this group so exciting, right? In a lot of the other groups, we've been looking at a few teams. WE, we were like, right, they're bottom team. Actually, they end up picking up wins up against EDG, but we still weren't thinking that EDG looked like a particularly good squad. LNG were very clearly the worst team in that group going in, and our expectations were not shattered. We were very much expecting what ended up happening in that group. In this one, all of the predictions last week, when it was, hey, what do you think is going to happen completely fresh, were very different to what we're predicting now halfway in, and we're still all predicting different things. This group is crazy, and I think these two teams are a big part of why it's crazy, because they maybe haven't had quite the same highs as AL have. And Ultra Prime, I feel like they've come out of left field. Where have they come from right here?
I'm glad you made that point, because the sentiment coming into this group was that it was AL tune-up time, where they would really just run this group and prepare themselves for Group Ascend after that Grand Finals run. Now we are sitting here waiting for some of these young future stars to maybe pave the path. We talk about RNG and Ultra Prime, which we will see later on here. But we're getting set to get into this game number one, Bloxer. And I think this is a more important time more than ever to talk about how the meta has evolved a lot within this very group stage since day one.
The things that are getting picked right here are just crazy. Why is there a Neferi on my screen all the time? Why is there consistently a Neferi on my screen? The fact that they've changed her around to the point where she's jungling pretty effectively, the way that you're able to just be so much tankier, so much more survivability on this champion than it had previously, I think is really interesting. It's actually insane. The fact that you've got that one again, watching the Neferi versus Gwen matchup is just like watching toddlers swinging at each other. Nobody can land anything. There's nothing you can actually see hitting at this point. It's really funny to watch, but also it's been a great pick to really shake up what's in the meta, because these aggressive ganking junglers have been very high priority. The Skarner is still, I think, 100% win rate and very high on the ban rate. I think if any of these teams decide to let the Skarner through, it's a bad decision. It's still very, very strong in the meta at the moment. Same thing with the Vi. The Nocturne, though, has also been on the edges and being played quite regularly. The way that the jungle pool is at the moment, it's incredibly diverse in what playstyles these teams actually want to go for.
Yeah, you've got the resurgence of the Volibear. Like, Volibear in the jungle is very potent now again. But I'm glad you brought up that Gwen, because I find it, as much as I have a bone to pick with Riot about Neferi's their champion kit and how face rolly it really is, with now an untargetable, that makes it, there's the outplay potential, right? Yone cleanse discussions begin. But Gwen being a B1 blindable that means that champion is very, very overpowered. And hey, Thunder Talk recognized it. We're into the game one draft. They are going to commit the red side Gwen ban, and the Fury. The dog ain't coming out of the cage, Rafa. If you're listening to me, I'm sorry, man. No howling at the camera this time for game one. RNG, don't want to deal with it.
No, indeed. And it is going to be very interesting right here. Do you ban the Skarner, right? You've got one final ban as Thunder Talk. Red side pretty much had to ban it the entirety of Split 1. No, they're going to leave this one open. Now, what do you get for yourself right here? Interesting that RNG don't go towards it. High priority picks like the Skarner do still remain. Surely Betron decides to take this one. I know that Betron has been enjoying playing a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time, his Poppy's already been taken off of the board, which is one of his best looking picks at the moment. I feel like I would love to see a Skarner here.
Yeah, and I don't think Betron has a Skarner in the LPL yet, because like you talked about, the ban rate's been crazy. And there's been very little opportunities, but Patron is actually going to go for the Sejuani. So are we expecting a Yone right next to this? It's the normal pairing we've been seeing in the LPL.
Yeah, I mean, if it is, I hope that Setab takes it, not Hoya. We don't see that moved around once again. I think Setab was one of the
No more moving.
No more moving. Standard lanes right here, please. But no, I think Setab was one of the most interesting players on these AD mid laners. I thought he had some really impressive Yone performance, some great Yasuo's. If you could get him something very aggressive early on, I would not be too surprised about that. But we've also seen a real diversity in drafts recently, where some teams are taking their ADCs as literally red 5. They are taking it as a counter pick. Other teams picking it up for themselves very early on. And actually, this looks like we're finally going to get to see a Skarner go straight through a pick and ban phase as the Viking are locked in.
It's true.
And Aurora being grabbed as well.
Bloxer, you know what I see? I don't know if you noticed my groan. It's a 1x Ash game.
It is.
Listen,
it is.
I understand the champion's very pivotal, very good draft pick, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not the fan of handicapping 1xN. We'll see if it works this time for Thunder Talk, because RNG's draft is very clear. I love whenever you pair Vi with Ambessa. You're always looking to set up those public executions. What better ultimate than Cease and Desist to do that?
Yeah, and this is a composition from RNG right now that wants to go in, go forwards, go dive themselves into the backline. Be interested to see what they pair up with it. Things like the Kai'Sa in this situation are very good. We've seen a couple of teams also pair it with a Jhin, where the Jhin sits very far back, and then the rest of the team goes flying in. I prefer it with the more aggressive ADCs that can join along with you. Thunder Talk, you're going to recognize that one, take it off of the board. Thunder Talk, though, their composition, a little bit more about the pick potential that you can get between the Sejuani and the Ashe.
True. And, you know, the Renekton comes across, you check the melee checkbox right now, so you get that for Hoya. We haven't seen a lot of the Croc from Hoya, though, and this is a very important thing to talk about with Thunder Talk, is a lot of the resounding sentiment for their struggles right now, Bloxer, has been, a lot of people I've been hearing the Hoya was a lane swap merchant discussion, so to see him pick more aggressive laners and maybe try and prove them wrong against RNG, I don't hate it.
No, last time out, he did play the Rumble, had great success for himself in that matchup up against the Ornn, I think it was, in that particular matchup, and was able to do really well for himself. In this one, into the Ambessa, you can go toe-to-toe. You can really get aggressive with this matchup. But these junglers both have great gank opportunities as well, so you need to be careful. Temper that aggression. Don't go too far forwards, because in the losses that we've seen out of Thunder Talk, he has been falling behind a little bit. He hasn't been able to quite get that same level of success, so that will definitely be something for us to track through as we do move on into this second round of picks. You highlighted it earlier that the Yone could work really well. I think the Yone into these kind of pick compositions that can turn into full dive front to backs work really well. I do not want the Rise. The Rise has looked horrible throughout these past weeks. Oh, man. Okay.
All right, so we get the Rise. I'm with you. I think the Yone would have worked well, because you also, you don't have a true tank that's really going to come through this game to punish the fact that you are very AD reliant on the Thunder Talk side. They'll opt for the Rise. They're opting to play these fights as long as possible with a Renekton and a Rise, but RNG is going to pick up a very aggressive bottom lane, one of the better aggressive bottom lane pairings in Ezreal and Karma. Why not play the hot hand that is Jhachi right now?
And let's see what Feather decides to take here, because if you take yourself an Enchanter as he's currently hovering towards, you're kind of stuck in this lane. A lot of the times when you see an Ezreal Karma, you just decide, hey, it's not worth it. Let's go elsewhere. Let's get involved across the rest of the map and not just lock myself down into this one specific lane. Is instead going to be this Seraphine. I'd be very surprised if Feather decides to roam heavily with this pickup. It makes a lot more sense to just sit in the lane, but that means you're going to be taking a ton of pressure just constantly from Jackie and Nick.
Yeah, so maybe it's wanting to play double range into the Ezreal Karma. It does kind of alleviate some of the pressure that lane can bring. But I think the key thing that screams out here for Thunder Talk, how much pressure are they putting on 1xN Ashe Arrows, Bloxer? And more importantly, just Beichuan in general as like this nearly sole engaged threat. Because Seraphine Encore is really only ever going to be used to prevent that dive comp you're talking about from RNG.
It makes sense to pick it into this one. The Seraphine or the Renata would have done the same sort of thing, where you can at least stop the dive from coming through. But you're right, it doesn't have that level of engage that you're really looking for. Right now, you're very reliant on either champions whose whole CC is themselves, or you're really going to need an Enchanted Crystal Arrow to land to make things work. At the same time, with the Realm Warp, I'm going to be very interested to see what they can actually do with this, because I said it, I don't like the Rise. I think a lot of teams will be picking the Rise and then just not doing anything with it. You've got to get aggressive with it. I think Realm Warp, in the same way that the Paranoia, if you don't make use of it in the first couple, what's the point of the champion right now? It's such a big part of it. There are other champions with ultis that could do more for you if you're not using this one proactively. Setup did play it in the previous matchup up against RNG. He's got some experience with this one, but very much, what can he do? You need to use it aggressively.
You need to be that big scaling threat if you're going to pick the Rise in a combo with an Ashe, with a Renekton, a Sejuani. We'll have to see here. Thunder Talk have been marred by some questionable draft decisions in these recent games, but it is now more integral than any time prior that they come out on top here as we enter our first game for the second round robin of Group B, where anything is possible. All teams control their destiny. Who between Thunder Talk and RNG are going to take that first foot forward or 2 steps back?
And this is such an important matchup. Like you said, 1 and 2 between them. need to be able to pick themselves up this victory. Otherwise, the group is going to be incredibly tricky to actually play out.
So we'll see. Pretty normal start so far across the board. Does look like RNG are potentially expecting some sort of later invade, the way their bottom lane's playing a bit further back off the tri-brush. But both our junglers looking to start on that mirrored clear. And I do like this for the Thunder Talk side here, Bloxer, because Beichuan could be in position to kind of alleviate some of that Ezreal karma pressure we're expecting.
Exactly, and you really do want to just get yourself into that lane if possible and just stop all that pressure from going through. If you can disrupt this Ezreal karma, they really can struggle later on in the game. At the same time, if you let them get ahead, that's so much poke that's going to make stepping up to these objectives incredibly tricky. Early on in the game, though, it should very much just be the poke coming through, getting pushed forwards. At Thunder Talk, you're not too worried about just having to sit back and farm your way through this early game, but it doesn't unlock Feather to go and get involved elsewhere on the map, as a lot of teams have been finding good success with, as you can't roam your entire bottom lane up to the top side of the map to go fight for grubs anymore. It's been a lot more of these safer ADCs and engaged supports that just leave their bot laners behind. I don't think we're going to be seeing that so much here.
We do have two marksmen who are perfect for it, though, I will say, which is this Ezreal versus Ashe matchup, but I'm glad you pointed out. Enchanters do make it a bit more intriguing to see some of those roams, as your positioning in general has to be a lot more on point when you're moving around the map, or you're a lot more susceptible to those pick plays. Milky Way just finishing up his bot side at around the same time as Beichuan, and we don't have any really clear lane advantages just yet. It does seem like Hoya's getting a pretty good crash into Xiaoshu, so could see the first gank come across from Milky Way, a guy, Bloxer, we talked about from the jump. We like to see his proactivity since Split 2 turned for RNG.
Oh yeah, after getting involved here in Split 2, the teams look so much better with the way that Milky Way is just so aggressive with it. Loves to play these aggressive junglers and has been using them to great effect. Getting involved in these lanes early on is incredibly important in this Vi versus Sejuani matchup. Both of these champions can gank so well, but Sejuani has such an extra level of tankiness that's just innate to her, meaning she's going to be very useful later on in the game regardless. Vi's, if they fall behind, it's very tricky to play out because you're using your ulti in the midst of a team fight. You might die before you even get there if you don't have the needed items.
Ooh, speaking of dying soon, Hoya taking some rough trades. Gotta give a spotlight over to Xiaoshu on this Ambessa with the electrocute. I gotta think, Bloxer, this is just to try and maximize winning these trades in lane with how volatile you talked about Renekton and Ambessa.
Absolutely. Although it is a little bit of a benefit towards the Renekton in a lot of situations, with the electrocute, you can make it work for you right here. And if you can get a couple of solo kills, again, great way to be able to change the balance of this game. That being said, both of these teams haven't particularly gotten aggressive early on in games at this point. They're a lot more about roaming around to these skirmishes around the early objectives. Obviously, first rate going to be a minute away, two also for the grubs. And grubs is usually that first thing that we see a lot of teams really go to fight towards.
Not what Milky Way's looking for. Great hawk shot though from 1xN. Does spot Milky Way potentially trying to set up a lane gank. Feather's going to burn the heal there. Yeah. Just to create a bit of space. So do get that summoner down, but 1xN and Feather holding a decent HP advantage. So they haven't fallen too far behind in one of the most potent lanes in the Ezreal Karma.
Yeah, a lot of these bot lanes that we've been seeing really cannot step up whatsoever to this bottom lane. It's not really the case for the Thunder Talk bot lane right here because you've got that Seraphine, you've got an extra level of poke that you're able to provide as well. I like the observers right now highlighting very much that both of these junglers are well and truly on vision at the moment. Nobody should be surprised about where they are. They pretty much entirely split the map at the moment, taking top and bottom sides respectively, but at the moment, actually, interesting to see Beichuan moving back towards his own jungle. Milky Way could potentially try for a gank early here, but all of these lanes kind of just not quite sat where these junglers need them to be able to get aggressive.
You talked about how integral grubs have been just in the LPL in general. Curious to see when these bottom lanes might look to try and take their reset. Both are kind of jockeying to get a wave crashing in their favor, but if you're going to play for these grubs, coming up about 30 seconds, you're going to want to take your resets now. Neither support looks to move, so with mid laners returning to lanes, we might have a rare scenario where grub fights may only be a straight-up 3v3. I do see at that time, though, Niket is taking the recall here, and Feather and 1xN will, so I may have spoken too soon, but we'll see how quickly they can get up to the grub pit.
If they can get involved right here, the skirmishing potential early on from this RNG composition is pretty strong if you can get the Imbessa involved. Thundertalk not going to be any slouches either, though. It is going to be initial engager into the pit right here from Milky Way. The bot lane actually going to roam up as well out of Thundertalk. They are very much looking to fight around this one.
Full bottom lane, but Milky Way's already gotten one grub. Really good job to hold the Varbreaker until you know you can get over that wall. So you do surrender 2-1, but you'll take that trade with how much map pressure you've given up. You can already see tons of pings from Jachi onto that bot wave. He knows that he's going to be able to deny at least a wave off of 1xN here to find a small advantage for now.
1xN, a long run it is going towards those grubs and then all the way back down into the bottom lane. Won't lose out onto 2 more.
Oh, hold on, though. We have Setab landing the first snare with the Glacial Prison up. That is as clean of a kill as you're going to find. But TT are not done just yet. Realm Warp being used early like you called out, Blockster. The kid has to flash into the Dragon Pit, but he goes right into the waiting arms of 1xN. Beitwan follows with his own flash. This is the proactivity we saw from Thundertalk in Split 1 that got them out of their group 3-0.
This is what we needed to see out of Thundertalk, a revitalized roster in Split 1 who all of a sudden weren't able to get as aggressive. This is the proactivity I wanted to see out of the Rise pickup. Setab using that one incredibly aggressively, and anything we were just talking about 1xN having lost has been regained from the fact he gets to pick up that kill. Really, really well played right there out of Thundertalk. And the fact that they also grabbed themselves the Drake on the backside of that fight is just another boon.
A lot of people, when Thundertalk had the success they did in Split 1, gave a ton of praise to a couple of different spots. Hoya was a weak side king. Setab had some really influential mid lane picks with his melee specialty, but I always felt like Feather and Beitwan were the engine of this team. I think this sequence we're about to go through the replay with Bloxer with doesn't show it any better.
Yeah, just manages to get that initial bit of the stun, and Beitwan immediately follows up. Like you said, the aggression that Thundertalk have is not just one person goes flying in. It's the second that somebody decides they're going in, everybody joins immediately. I love Beitwan as well, flashing over the wall here, making sure that 1xN could grab this one, and it's just teed up beautifully for 1xN to be able to pick that one up. You can see right now hasn't actually been able to go back to base in order to spend any of that advantage, but still going to be in a perfectly fine spot at this point. And that initial aggression around these objectives has come out in Thundertalk's favor. We've now got another 2 or so minutes until anything more that they can fight around. That doesn't stop RNG from roaming there.
Oh,
couple players top side.
Yeah, they're trying to bait Hoya in.
Hoya, don't.
But we got to remember, Hoya knows how to play the one versus many matchups, all right? You can take the lane swap out of the game, but you can't take the lane swap mentality out of Hoya. So he avoids that death brush.
And that's now Nickhead moved up towards this top side of the map on a really inopportune timing. You know, there's nothing particularly for him to do right here. Walking across vision at the moment as well. So you're going to be well aware of what is happening as Thundertalk's bot lane. And there's not an objective to go fight for. You know, you're helping your mid laner clear out a couple of minions? Yeah, just really unfortunate right here for RNG. And it is just going to buy way more time for the bottom lane of 1xN and Feather to be able to push this one through, open up Feather for a bit of a roam timing, and you can see 1xN going to head back to base, actually spend that gold that he was able to pick up from that kill, and is now going to be in a very strong spot.
A couple of days off so far seem to reinvigorate the inspiration for Thundertalk that we saw from Split 1. So I know it's early, Blockster, but I feel like we've already checked off some of the fixes we want to see from Thundertalk in this game already.
Absolutely. I wanted to see them actually following up on engages. I wanted to see some playing around the bottom lane, seeing what Setup could do as well on this Rise. And I'm more than willing to be wrong about the Rise pickup. It's so much fun when it works, when people are being aggressive with it. It feels so bad when you watch 1 or 2 realm warps in an entire game and one of them was just like getting back to lane quicker. That's not fun.
Or saving yourself from a gank, right? Like, come on. We want to see the lore accurate Rise who's just realm warping into the most dangerous spots ever. Let's stay as lore accurate as we can to the champion.
Exactly. And it's so much fun to watch from a viewer perspective when everybody appears behind. Just make things so good. Setup was getting threatened a little bit. I was slightly worried he was going to get dove, but without the wave underneath the tower, more than enough time is going to be bought because Milky Way was down towards this bottom side of the map. Now that the grubs have spawned, Thundertalk going to be able to get straight on top of these.
Thundertalk doing a really good job shutting out RNG's ability to cross map for a lot of their plays, and they've kind of just been stuck in a rut moving towards the wrong side of the map constantly. That's going to be 5 grubs over to Beitchuan for nothing. I mean,
for nothing.
No, I mean, unless Dongguan's going to shut me up in an instant with the Between Worlds, and they just delete 1xN's health bar. That is a one-item Aurora decimating 1xN.
Yikes, that's really unfortunate right there for 1xN. He thought that he was safe, but the second the Between Worlds pops, just so much damage.
Completely decimates. And we've seen Aurora be such a pivotal champion. I know in the Weibo BLG series, got to see both Knight and Xiaohu play it to perfection. And, well, right when we were talking about RNG being a bit too slow to the plays, is Tong going to just pull up and, this is why you need to pop barrier. Wow, that is, what, 60% to 0 right there?
Yeah. Just looked like he was in a perfectly good spot, and then all of a sudden, just unbelievable amounts of damage at one item, like you said. And this isn't going to get any easier for 1xN. 1xN is very unlikely to build anything in this game that's going to mean he's actually able to survive Tanguan if he gets to him. It's very much going to be about spacing out correctly, making sure that this Aurora isn't able to just walk up to these plays. And like we were saying, they're not going to get anything from this as RNG. Well, they get themselves a kill. Now they are in the area around Thundertalk. Thundertalk, though, taking this dragon down pretty quickly. Do you actually want to go for the steal as Milky Way? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, Tanguan doesn't have the Between Worlds. He had to catch a bottom wave. RNG want the prio in mid. Maybe we'll just see TT look for the fight. There's the flash encore to 2 for Feather. Lockdown Department Feather. And it's going to be Niket falling first. Hoya pops the dominances. All of RNG jump right on top of him. And there's another forward-thinking Realm Warp. It's not going to find any more kills, but Thundertalk playing with a new confidence. And it's got themselves a pretty big lead in this game against RNG.
You don't recognize right there as RNG that they know somebody is in this bush. Although I don't think Thundertalk actually had vision into the bush. There are a couple of control wards in the area. They at least knew that there were gonna be multiple members of RNG in there. Why not fire off a blind Ash Arrow? And again, the great thing about Thundertalk happens here once again. Yeah, they know that there's members in there.
They see.
Mild vision. For a second, there's vision, and then everybody flashes on forwards. This is what we want to see from Thundertalk. This is what Thundertalk is as a composition. When one person goes in, everybody goes in. And I love that, again, like you said, the run warp happens immediately. Yeah, it doesn't get anybody. Not ideal in terms of just the actual efficacy of the ability, but using it aggressively is what I need to see from these Rise players.
Leave it to Thundertalk to pick 2 champions that we were scratching our heads at in draft with this Rise Seraphine for how slow they potentially would have to play. And Setab and Feather have been the 2 most aggressive people with their champions. You're not going to see a Seraphine flashing forward to Encore very often, but that is hashtag just Feather things that now has Thundertalk in control of so much of this game. 5 grubs. They got themselves a sizable gold lead. They've allowed Setab to relatively scale up on his own. Already has that row of stacking. Question now becomes, Bloxer, what do RNG do to try and pivot this game back in their favor?
They've got themselves the sort of composition that really should enjoy these straight up front to backs. I think that's what the Seraphine is best at. It stops that from being possible. And so RNG, I think, will pick, right? You saw earlier on what Tanguan was able to do to 1xN on this pickup. If you can just turn this ADC into... Nah, he's fine.
For Thundertalk.
He's fine.
Okay.
Okay, maybe he's less fine at this point.
Yeah, it's like, they say like sharks like to go for exploratory bites first. Well, the dive was an exploratory bite. Xiaoshu, we're not going to talk about the public execution, all right? That's why you got to wait for your Vi. The CC desist makes it so easy.
Yeah.
And without that ultimate RNG, they can't go for this wrap.
This is what we were talking about a lot yesterday, right? And compositions where there's a lot of CC, the Ambessa looks so much better because the public execution is really hard to hit. That isn't, though.
It's the same combo again. Ash Arrow, Encore on multiple members. Sure, Milky Way flies in, but he's got no friends left around this pit. Second kill found. Thundertalk looked like a different animal. Second time round in Group B.
Yeah, but this is what they were able to do to RNG last time too. This team just doesn't seem to know how to play against the immense pressure that ThunderTalk bring. They don't fully commit to that dive. Correct decision, because there were many members of ThunderTalk on the way, but they still end up hanging around way too long. And again, 1xn proactive on this Ashe. As much as it's not one of our favorite pickups for him, we love watching him on these more aggressive picks. As we've been saying quite a lot in this game, ThunderTalk can take these more passive champions and make them seem like engage-heavy monsters.
It's important to remember as this game goes on with ThunderTalk in such a dominating position by this point, that all the momentum was with RNG, the first team to really make anyone's legend bleed outside of our contending squads in the LPL. ThunderTalk coming off of back-to-back losses. It's good to see that TT, an organization that just had their highest peak ever in the LPL, have already understood that they have things to work on after a shaky start to Split 2, and bearing fruit for now.
Exactly, and the league is way more fun when ThunderTalk are looking good, as they are in this game. We'll have to see how they look versus other opponents, but obviously still lots of League of Legends left to play in this one. Super important for the head-to-head as well. ThunderTalk being able to pick this one up would almost guarantee they're not going to be bottom of the rankings. And right now, a little bit of a play potentially around this Herald. Milky Way has been able to start this up earlier on.
Oh, here we go.
Tanguan's looking.
It was the same start. It was the same way that 1xn got popped last time, but can't cut down the space. He's learned.
He's scared. You can see the second that Tanguan pops up on his screen, he is booking it. He doesn't want to be anywhere nearby.
Speaking of booking it, RNG just booked it off the Herald. Milky Way was teasing the start, but they were a bit too afraid of Hoya stretching this map thin, going for the tier 2 turret, so they come off of it with no mid lane prio. And this is just the reality of the game state right now, is that RNG are going to have to drop a lot of things because there's just no way to really fight for a Herald with the current state of the game.
Exactly, but also I think RNG are just displaying that they are pretty scared to engage a lot of these fights. They haven't been anywhere near as proactive as ThunderTalk. Of course, their composition does come online a little bit later on. They're going to have 2-3 items being their point to really be wanting to fight. But still, at this point in the game, with one item on Tanguan and Jackie, I still think that's a pretty good spot to be fighting for. Now they go.
Tanguan's angry. He wants to make the same play on a 1xn, but this time it doesn't go so well. Good flash just before the pixel of the Encore lands. Tons of ultimates thrown down, traded blow for blows. Hoya TP's in, sees an assist, brings it towards his team with the flash, pops the dominance, and now is looking to turn it on its head. Milky Way once again burned on the front line, and the Realm Warp in for Satab. Just a bit late, but he gets the turret. Everything going the way of TT, it feels like right now in this game.
Now, one of the few proactive plays we have seen out of RNG so far. Now they might pay for it even more dearly. Miniway being pushed under. The flank is here.
All gas, no brakes, but Feather gets eviscerated. Xiaoshu hits the public execution. 1xn, good flash to create some space here. Tanguan and Jachi on the front line, trying to burn through these big tanky health bars, but Beidron gets himself out. Jachi has to respect Satab's damage. So ThunderTalk maybe learning some of their limits, but luckily doesn't cost them more than a trade of kills for now.
No, but still, the fact that they've got all of this pressure going on, ThunderTalk showing up in a big way. When we look back at this replay, I'm going to have to do a couple question mark pings towards Milky Way. I'm not sure that was the cease and desist that was really needed. Goes flying into the back line, and not sure about that one. Once again, though, it was a great arrow and a great encore that would have landed if it was just a second before. Unfortunately, Feather wasn't quite involved. It's this cease and desist. You get pulled all the way back into your opponent's squad, and there is so much CC on this composition. This is a great Sejuani game right here, where you've got Hoya to also be putting down the stacks to be getting as much down as possible in terms of the stuns, but then also anytime you see a Sejuani and an Ashe paired up, such a nice combo, almost impossible to try to get away from it. You see it there, 1xn able to just kite that one out. And ThunderTalk coming out on top once again. They're up by about 5,000 gold already in this game.
And they maybe have arguably the more snowball-oriented Otacon to play for as well. Voracious Otacon and Karitsa's on the rift here towards this bot side. But for RNG, I think that replay also demonstrated we're just not syncing our engages together. Tanguan goes forward first. Milky Way goes with Xiaoshu there, but doesn't commit the public execution. You draft these 3 champions, 1, 2, 3, to have them all ult together. And that has not come together for World Never Give Up yet.
And it's the complete opposite of Thunder Talk, where when somebody goes, everybody goes immediately.
Right.
You cannot go one by one as RNG. That's something they're going to have to fix very quickly, or they're going to be in big threat of losing this game. Like I said, Atakan, a very tempting buff at the moment. Both teams sending a good couple of members around. I agree. I agree.
Don't start it. It's fake. You'll throw your game. Don't start it.
Oh, yeah. Way too many teams starting up Atakans and losing out onto them. Oh, Milky Way's caught.
Way. Okay, gets a big shield, but there's the lockdown. The Mikhail saves him for now through the Encore, but Milky Way drops first. Another Realm War forward. Satap's flashing after RNG. He's got vengeance on the mind. He's just going to knock down Niket, and that's how you can set up for a Voracious Octagon take. Another pair of kills for Thunder Talk as they continue to keep the snowball a-rolling.
This is what you need to do. Win the fight first, then start the Atakan up. And you know what? Setap is allowed to play Rise. I'm not sure anybody else is at the moment, but Setap, the Rise play is clean at the moment.
No Doinby Rise anymore? Does he lost the Rise card already?
It's still not as proactive. I don't think anybody's as proactive on the Rise as Setap is. Setap is barely using it as a Rise.
I'll agree with you on that. Yeah,
He's just
that's true.
So aggressive on every single pickup. At least RNG are going to be able to pick themselves up this top lane tier 1 bounties on things already in this game. RNG really are quite far behind in this one. And you can see in terms of the items at the moment, scraps and components for a lot of the RNG players, where if you've got 2 items completed and good movement towards that 3rd item right here for Thunder Talk, these team fights are going to be incredibly tricky at the moment for them.
Mm-hmm. Gotta rely on the LPL English rookie of the split, Jachi. Only does have the 2 items complete with the Moramana. This is a huge spike for Ezreal. So you gotta try and play through him. But no playing to interact with TT for at least the next 2 minutes. This revive buff with the comp that we have seen flying to try and chase kills just makes them even more deadly. And I don't even know if Jachi just simply catching mid-waves is really that safe with Voracious Octagon to play.
Because everybody can go diving in. I'd like to see Thunder Talk not do that. Far too many teams just jump into fights that they have no hope of winning, end up giving over quite a lot of gold, because despite the fact that you don't technically die, there is still a lot of gold from losing that respawn. Yeah. Not necessarily the best decision to make. I like the plays right here, though. Hoya getting a good push off in the top lane. Good movement towards this bot lane tier 2 tower as well. And with the 5 grubs picked up earlier on, this one is going to be melted through pretty dang quickly. Now, potential pullback towards this Drake. Hextech Drake, very, very nice to pick up.
Yeah, this is such a good window for that Octagon to go down, because you called it. These tier 2 turrets going to fall. Hoya, really good job spacing the map. Going to grab one up. Or he's a little bit wary. I like respecting too many opponents off vision. Gets it low enough.
Your team are going to go get the Drake right now. There's no point in your death. Your death, even with the respawn, doesn't give you anything. This tower's going to fall eventually. It's not like you are scrapping for any little bits of gold at the moment. You're ahead. Don't give your opponents a way back into this one.
And while both of our teams are 1 and 2, and we have a bit of a lull with Voracious Octagon coming off soon. Bloxer, we talked about it before we got into this game, but it's important to mention that 1 and 2 is a little bit misleading, knowing that Thunder Talk have a win over RNG already. So if this goes TT's way, unless they collapse an RNG super surge, it's hard. They don't end up in Nirvana group straight out.
Yeah, it would need RNG beating AL again, which it already felt like a miracle the first time. They'd also need to pick themselves up a win versus UP, who have been looking like a real dark horse contender, not just in this group, but going forward. And Thunder Talk losing everything. Now, Thunder Talk did lose to the other 2. It wouldn't be completely impossible. This group has been crazy already, but you do not want to be 0-2. The head-to-head is the first determining factor in these tiebreakers. It's only if the teams are 1-1 and at the bottom of the group that we'll end up playing a 7th game today in order to determine who's going to go straight down and who's going to get that last chance moving on forwards. Such an important matchup for both of these teams. For Thunder Talk, though, it's more than just beating RNG again. It's about the momentum coming into today. It's about showing that they know how to play the map in a way that they just haven't displayed for us throughout the rest of this split 2.
It's Thunder Talk trying to show that their first ever 5th, 6th finish in the LPL was not a fluke. And now in the game state, they're looking to push the tempo even more here. Tongguan going to just cleanse out with the Mikhails away from that Glacial Prison. So maybe that TT aggressive forward push is a little bit neutered for the time being with that ultimate down.
He's just going to slow things up a little bit, but for Thunder Talk, this is absolutely fine. You're looking for another fight and to draw RNG in around this Baron. The threat of the Baron going down is immense right now. Thunder Talks don't have the single fastest take onto it, but it still is going to be melted through, as you can see. RNG, they're going to spot this one out, but can they step up? Setab is just playing God.
That is one combo from Setab with the EQ coming across, just keeping really all of RNG at bay. There's the arrow down. It finds its mark onto Nikat, who gets burned through first. Sure, the Vi and the Aurora fly into the back line, but who else is coming to save them? Come across, maybe it's Xiaoshu dashing into the back line, but it's too late by this point. TT are just rolling as a 5-stack. That is an ace and a Baron as we return to the TT dominance, potentially from split number 1.
Oh, that was a gorgeous encore right there from Feather. Only 1xN gonna fall for Thunder Talk, and the Baron gonna be picked up as a prize on the backside of that fight. Really well executed out of Thunder Talk. The land of the arrow initially isn't onto a key target. You would rather that you get Jackie here, but Jackie does manage to jump away from that one. Nikat just gets jumped, but watch Feather right here. Watch this encore. Flashback encore that lands onto both Tanguan and onto Milky Way, and that's what keeps 1xN alive for long enough to just deal the extra damage. Yes, 1xN falls in the backside of that fight, but is able to pick up 2 kills before that actually ends up happening. Really key from Feather. That was gorgeous.
Feather, my bad. I wasn't a fan of the Seraphine pick, but this man has quite literally, statistics-wise, not had an encore that hasn't hit 2 people.
Yeah, and that flashback to get the angle on the encore and to make sure it extends through more of your team.
So smart.
That's so nice. That is so nice to watch. Just fills me with joy, actually, to watch champions like the Seraphine, Ashe, Ryze being played proactively like that, not just sitting back. This is the best of these champions. They can feel boring in a lot of games, not the case in the hands of Thunder Talk right now. And they are going to be pushing through, using these Baron-empowered cannon minions to chip away at the towers. A little bit tricky for this composition to actually step to towers, but with the grubs up and available, once they do get to hit them, they're going to fall pretty quickly. And obviously, that's what the Baron buffs for. It makes it so much easier for Thunder Talk actually to be able to step up here.
And also gives them the capability of one more fight win with the grubs and Baron. Will just end this game that has been dominating from Thunder Talk ever since we got about 4 minutes in. Not noting that Glacial Prison. Beichuan gonna whiff that one out. Milky Way once gonna go forward, but who's gonna follow him? The public execution does come through from Xiaoshu for the first time, and 1xN falls first, but Setab is just too damn big on this Ryze, throwing out combo after combo, slamming his keyboard down, trying to push his damage to the max. It's the solo lanes this time for Thunder Talk that shine as they find themselves another fight win, and it might just be the one that crowns them a 2-2 record to start off the second round robin.
They're going to be pushing forwards right here. Jackie trying desperately to be able to keep this one alive. Going to get jumped, though, and taken down. Hoya picks up that kill. The Nexus towers will fall. And Thunder Talk, they're going to move up in this group. RNG 0-2 versus Thunder Talk. That is devastating for their chances.
Took sub 30 minutes, but Thunder Talk have once again accomplished a win over RNG and maybe shaken up the groove. Back to the normalcy we expected. That was, though, the cleanest game from Thunder Talk we have seen in Split 2 for sure, Bloxer.
1xN gets jumped multiple times throughout that game, only dies a couple of times to it, and it doesn't matter in the end because you're blowing so much as RNG to try to kill onto this Ashe, that it means you're letting everybody else just run the rift. RNG, this is not the team that yesterday beat AL. Surely that is a different squad right here. And this is the joy of this group, right? You can beat the top team in your group and then lose to Thunder Talk in such convincing fashion.
That is the beauty of best of ones, all right? And that's why I'm a fan of them. The prevailing thought is it opens up teams that really we saw struggle with best of fives to show their stuff. And we'll talk more about that when we get to Ultra Prime, but for now, it's also serving an ability for teams to really just battle back from a bad day. And maybe that's what we're going to see from Thunder Talk as we continue talking about the momentum basis in these groups.
Exactly. The way that this win was grabbed for Thunder Talk is almost just as important as the fact that they win it. If they win it, but it's a 45-minute slog that nobody really feels like they're coming out on top of, you then look at Ultra Prime and an AL and go, are you sure you're going to be able to pick up wins right here? Where Thunder Talk, they crush their opponents right here. You also get another gap right here as these first two teams to play. You can watch the other matchups. You can take a breather, grab a little bit of food, get yourself back centered, and then go again. It's a really nice spot to be in as the first teams of the day. There's no chance that you're going to be playing back-to-back ones, and that momentum really is going to be big right here for Thunder Talk. It feels very much that this is a team that when things are going good, when they are feeling good, oh, it's so fun to watch. But when things get a little bit rough, they don't necessarily have the mentals to be able to overcome that and bounce back.
Yeah, they are a confidence-based team. I think that's a great way to put it, and we saw that with Thunder Talk. It's important to remind the stakes, as we know this group was the only group to not have a 3-0 and 0-3 team coming into the second round robin. We talked a little bit about during the broadcast here, but Bloxer, now the stakes for RNG to not end up below Thunder Talk require perfection from them and complete collapse from Thunder Talk up against their next two opponents.
Yeah, it's not a good position to be in where you are reliant on your opponents. It being out of your hands right here as RNG is no fun. And because the other teams above you have already picked up more wins than you have, 1-3, bad spot to be in for today. Momentum also not going to be on your side. And the threat of going into Group Nirvana is no fun. We've been talking about it so much and we will continue to because it is truly one of the craziest things imaginable. You don't get to play your split 3 if you are one of the worst teams in Group Nirvana. Now, do I think RNG would be one of the worst teams in Group Nirvana? I don't think so. But still, it's not a fun place to be in, that's for certain.
No, it is not whatsoever. And for an organization like RNG to only play one and a change worth of splits in the LPL would be something that I think would give a heart attack to RNG fans from 5 years ago. But we're not going to get too doomer on those talks just yet. Let's talk about the standouts from this game here. Bloxer, do you want this to be a Feather MVP, even though I really don't think we're going to get it?
I would like it to be a Feather MVP. I think that encore was gorgeous and it was so nice. But honestly, I'd be very happy with Setab picking this one up as well. He was so aggressive. The Realm Warps were great, and I was so upset to see the Rise on my screen again. I thought that meant we were just going to see another nothing game from a mid laner. We don't get to see anything interesting. Everybody from Thunder Talk played that one out really well, but Feather, Setab, they would be my top players from this one.
This is the beauty of being a caster, Bloxer. Our draft takeaways were... Setab, you should have picked the Yone next to Sejuani. Why is it Rise?
Yeah.
Feather, why are you not picking an engaged champion? Yeah. You're picking the Seraphine. Sometimes we look silly, guys, all right? But
if
you just
they decide to play it as an engaged champion, that's not on us.
Yeah, we didn't know that before, all right? Let's give ourselves some credit. We were not expecting these encores from Feather.
These were just so nice. Every single encore that Feather pulled out was brilliant, but there's follow-up from the entire team there, and they were often started with a 1xN arrow. As much as he was also able to do a lot of work just kiting through these fights, something 1xN I think is one of the best we've got in terms of just pure kiting potential midway through team fights. He was also starting these fights every single time, and we never saw from RNG the combo that they had available to them and actually going in. The only real good plays that they had were just off of an aggressive Aurora play where you one-tap your opponent, which is good, but if you can't replicate that time and time again, not a reliable way to play this one out.
Yeah, this clip here was the first time we saw the cease and desist set up the public execution, and even though it did give themselves a pick in this fight, they were down 10k gold by this point.
Yeah,
so
they lose.
They do, in fact, end up losing. So we'll have to see who our player of the game will be coming soon here.
I have a question, Slayer. I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Just quickly.
Hey. Yeah.
We saw an Ezreal in this game do a lot of damage. We saw an Ezreal in this game lose. Are you still on Ezreal needs buffing train?
Okay, all right. I know I got memed for this, okay? I was being sarcastic, guys, okay? I'm an Ezreal player. My favorite time ever playing League of Legends was when Kleptomancy existed. I could play Ezreal. I could hit 6 Qs in a team fight and have every potion on me that you knew in the game. Do I recognize that was a terrible time for anybody else to be playing League of Legends? Yes, but I'm a self-AD carry player. What do you expect me to say right now?
You heard it here first. Ezreal deserves massive buffs. Buff all of his items. Make him the strongest champion ever. No, I mean, we have been seeing it a lot recently, right? Where Ezreals do so much work, but they just aren't actually able to carry the team at the moment. I think as much as it is a good safe pick, the best bit about the Ezreal is more whatever support you can play with it, because they're unlocked to go and get involved with the jungler, play elsewhere. The Ezreal doesn't feel like he's the big part of that.
Yeah, we'll have more Ezreal discussions because I believe we won't. Will be the last we see of the Ezreal. Beitron gets an MVP here. Was the member of Thunder Talk during Split 1 regular season that had the most MVPs, and he's got himself 2 for each of the Thunder Talk wins so far. And it's important to give him credit here too, Bloxer, because he was just as proactive, like you talked about, as the rest of the team was.
Yeah, he was able to just get so much done for his team. Every single time that an Asher lands, there's a Glacial Prison coming flying in as well. He also started a couple of fights with his own Glacial Prisons, was buying so much space, so much time. As much as we're talking about Feather buying 1xn some space, exactly the same thing was happening right there from Beitron. And he was one of the most impressive players for them in Split 1. It's really nice to see how much he's been getting his feet under him again in this Split number 2. And I'm excited to see what he can do up against the other 2 opponents in this group.
For now, we will bid adieu to Thunder Talk for a bit, but we're going to roll into our next matchup soon. Before we get there, though, one of the most important messages I want to bring to all of you watching at home here on the unofficial LPL English broadcast. We're extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up the show you're watching right now. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it pays on-air talent like myself and Bloxer and content creators behind the scenes that help us push out so many awesome pieces of content. Subscribe to our Coffee, linked in chat, to unlock perks like early access to content like I talked about, and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. So make sure to check those out. I'm going to give you some time to do it because we're going to take a step away from the broadcast just for a bit. But on the other side, we will introduce the other 2 teams looking to compete in Group B, the Group of Life, as we try to figure out who's going to Group Ascend, who's going to Group Nirvana, and who has to duke it out for even more League of Legends action. All of that coming your way after a short intermission. Hope you didn't miss us too much here on the unofficial LPL English broadcast as we are looking to turn ourselves right into game number 2 on the final day of Group B, which means we have to introduce 2 new teams here. And, well, we definitely have 2 squads that one was expected to be where they are in the group, and the other one, a nice surprise. Let's start with the obvious one, the former Grand Finals appearance, Anyone's Legend squad. Let's introduce a team that everyone is very, very familiar with. Flandra, the heart of this squad in the top lane, the spirit behind it in the jungle with Tarzan, Shanks the mid laner, and Hope and Kyle round out this bottom lane. A team that may have taken a shocking loss, Bloxer, but how much do you really want to attribute that to an Anyone's Legend fall off?
Oh, I'm so not sure about this one, right? You said that this is a team where people expect them to be. Well, they are at the top of the standings right here, technically, but a lot of people would have been looking at this squad and expecting that they were going to be at the top, like BLG were, 3-0 coming out of the first day. Not worried about actually looking down beneath them, like IG are now, 6-0. All of a sudden, they end up losing that game up against RNG, a team we just watched get dismantled by Thunder Talk, and it's left me with a lot of questions about them. In that game that they lost versus RNG, it looked like they were lost. It looked like they just sort of slipped early on and then never got it back. It was really, really odd.
And I know, Bloxer, you spent some time in the good old-fashioned think tank to maybe try and figure out what's different about Anyone's Legend, and I got word from a couple of birdies I have spying across the pond that you have an intriguing pick on the drafts from AL since we've gotten out of the lane swap meta.
I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of these AL drafts. I feel like they're missing out on just that spark that's going to get them going. The Vladimir draft, I was not a fan of at all. RNG in this pickup, the bottom one on your screen right here, draft themselves very aggressive as a composition, and the sort of composition wants to go flying into the back line. AL draft themselves a composition that wants to do something, maybe go flying in, maybe, but into the composition you're up against, I'm not sure. Maybe they want to try for picks, but who's really going to go for the pick? It just didn't have an identity, and it was not the sort of composition that could play from behind. They then don't play the early game out well, and it just falls apart for them right there. AL, their drafting is a little bit suspect at the moment. At the same time, sometimes they can just out-hands you, and sometimes it does feel like the way that they play is exactly as we had previously.
So what I'm hearing here is we're not looking for a Flandra Vladimir reappearance. That's what you're saying?
I would like for that not to happen. That would be good.
Well, all right, we'll keep that in the back of the mind because they're definitely playing a team that has been the surprising, pleasant surprise, I would say, of Group B. It's Ultra Prime. I know Kelsey Moser herself is happy to see this squad where it's at. The roster in front of you, as you see, Wanzhang in the top lane, Junhao jungle, Saber in the mid lane spot. You got Wako and Rosie Love coming in at the support. Intriguing to see if that they are once again going back to Rosie Love after the success they saw with him out of the lineup.
Yeah, it was interesting to see this move around, but hey, it seems to be working for them right now. If we end up seeing Ultra Prime's victories here and they're able to get into the top 2, get themselves into Group Ascend, they're guaranteeing for themselves an incredibly good finish. I think the best finish the team would have ever seen for itself, and it's just been such a wild ride for them, right? Yeah, look at this. 14th, 17th, 15th, 13th to 16th, and then what? You're all of a sudden into that top 10? That would be a crazy turnaround for a team that really has had such an inconsistent run.
You put it really well there, Bloxer. It's Ultra Prime. We're being talked about in circles coming to Split 2, especially knowing what the end of Group Nirvana looks like on the bottom half as a team that could very much not be in the LPL sooner rather than later. That's a lot of pressure to put on these players, but they are sort of reinvigorated in these last couple of games, even against opponents like AL. I mean, just look at the proactivity in this early game. That's what is really shining through most for me.
Absolutely. Ultra Prime were in the advantaged position in this game for a really long time. It looked like they might have actually been able to pick this one up for themselves. This is an AL dive that goes very wrong. But unfortunately for them, they go for a couple of bad team fights later on and just don't actually end up picking themselves up the win here after they'd worked so hard for it, put themselves in such a good spot to be able to win this one. I feel like Ultra Prime, they're going to feel like they had something to prove in this one because they really did have that game in their grasp and they let it go.
So can't kick themselves too much about it, though. They have the opportunity to bounce back here against AL. We keep preaching about how momentum is such a big factor in this one. And while we did see Thunder Talk, the team with arguably the least amount of momentum from the first set of games from Group B, Anyone's Legend would definitely be second place in that conversation to Ultra Prime. So we'll see exactly how that plays out. I am hearing word that we might have mistaken the Ultra Prime lineup. It sounds like the official LPL pages do have Xiaoxia playing instead of Rosie Love, and that's what I like to hear, because the worst thing in League of Legends is punishing a player after they perform well on stage.
Yeah, exactly. You jump in, do amazing. Thanks, but we'll see you next week. Get rid of them. Not
get ready for scrims, man. Get ready for scrims.
Yeah. I don't think anything could actually be worse as a just feeling for a player right here. So yeah, definitely going to be nice to actually get to see him. And this matchup, I really don't know how it's going to go, because AL
no idea.
Didn't look great in the early game versus Ultra Prime. They didn't look great in the early game versus RNG and then lose that one. And then they completely dismantled Thunder Talk, who we just watched completely dismantle RNG. Both of these teams have won versus opponents I think that they look a lot better than, and lost to opponents that I also think they look a lot better than. It's really interesting right here, and it means so much once again. As much as we have been talking about the bottom of the standings and going down into that Group Nirvana, you still want to get yourself into that top 2, guarantee being into Group Ascent, and the seeding does also matter.
It does matter a lot. Getting a look at Group B here, you can see how tightly bunched these squads are. It is important to remember, though, no matter which one of our two teams, Anyone's Legend or Ultra Prime, do end up being the loser, going 2-2, they will not drop into third place, because both of them do hold the head-to-head over Thunder Talk at this current point. So not a ton of standing shakeup just yet, but really going to set up for how dramatic the 3 through 6 games of this block are going to be.
Exactly. It's the second half of this block that are really going to show us where these teams actually stand. Right now, we're doing a lot of the setup work. If Thunder Talk had lost, well then Thunder Talk's rest of their day, it would have been a lot closer. The fact that RNG lose this one, have the 0-2 to Thunder Talk, kind of shakes this group out quite a lot, in that you can see the RNG more likely to be one of those bottom teams, but they've also been taking games all off of each other, and everything is going to come down to these last couple of games to actually see who is sat where. We know that you don't play match for seeding at the top of the group, and you do as the 3-4. I'm not sure what happens as the 2-3 if you're matched there. I would imagine that one is going to get played, because it does have massive implications for where you're going. Yeah, the top isn't played. So they don't play all of them.
I guess the logic I could see here, right, is if the game decides but two teams going to different parts of the format, they have to play it out. But if it's two teams that are going to still end up going to Group Ascend, there's no reason to play it out. I get the logic nonetheless. But let's talk, before walkouts come here, about pressure, because we came in discussing Thunder Talk, the pressure they had on them to perform. If you thought TT was under a lot of scrutiny and pressure after the first round robin, knowing the peak of AL right now is a grand finals appearance, how integral is it that they come out here against Ultra Prime and just not only just win, but win in a dominating fashion?
Exactly. I think that AL, because they've already lost themselves this one game, it's already going to be a little bit of a disappointment. It's the same sort of thing for BLG, where you're looking at them and go, hey, you didn't go 6-0. You lost a game. Are you feeling good? What's going on? There's different expectations for different teams. For AL, for BLG, it was 6-0, get out of your group, and we're now going to have all of our questions answered. Great, you're as good as you were previously. Wonderful. IG, they go 6-0, and we still have questions despite the fact that they've gone 6-0. So it's really interesting, the different expectations and the different meanings of these things. Because AO lose this game, it really does leave us with a lot of questions, and if they don't just dominate their way through the second half of the round robin, it's going to bring even more. If they do, though, if they are actually able to pick themselves up 3 dominating wins today, they were a little bit rusty coming off of the break. First round robin, they just needed to shake off that little bit of rust. It was a mistake versus RNG, and they're fine again. But if things are getting close, even if they end up winning these games, but it's as close as it was previously versus Ultra Prime, not sure that it's going to be answering the questions we have.
It's a fun little way to give yourself a laugh, thinking that coming into Split 2, everyone, you called it well. It's like, oh, BLG are going to 6-0 with this group. Oh, Ultra Prime. Anyone's Legend got one of the easiest groups, 6-0 again. And we are at minimum, going to have IG be the only 6-0 team.
Yeah.
And then the only other person that can threaten for it is Top Esports, who are our champions, but maybe came in the most scrutinized team after first stand. So the fact that those two could be 6-0 out of the first groups is definitely, I mean, it's put a smile on your face now, Blocks are thinking about it.
It's fun. I love it. I love the way that it really is just all to play for right here. There feels like there's great storylines for even the worst teams. As much as Group Nirvana is a horrible threat for these teams, it's fun as a viewer to watch and see these bottom tier teams still scrapping like their life depends on it. And because it does. It really does. Like you said, though, Walkout's going to be coming through right here.
Yep.
See Ultra Prime and AL and how they're feeling. Like you said, pressure going to be very intense.
Yeah.
I think Ultra Prime, they've got a lot less pressure on them. They've already exceeded a lot of people's expectations.
The classic gambling metaphor of playing with house money. That's what I feel like it is for Ultra Prime. And boy, are they going to come out playing with house money, dripped head to toe. Oh, where is my full purple body, my full purple fit? Oh, am I crazy? When they played Split 1, didn't they wear like full purple? It wasn't just top half purple? Maybe I'm
full purple.
I'm coping.
Or we're both hallucinating because it would be way cooler if it was full purple. See, the full white looks great. I love the all one color. The all one color is really clean.
I do like it. I just feel like there are too many teams in the LPL that wear full white accented with red, right? There's Anyone's Legend. And like BLG's full white with accents of blue. And then you have as well Weibo, who walk around with basically the same fit as Anyone's Legend. So I will always give the drip factor to that royal purple. But is it enough to carry on to the Rift? We will have to see. Bloxer, which one of these Prio champions we've been talking about since the meta has evolved are you looking to stand out when you talk about Gwen's, Nafiris, Jace, and Bessa we just saw Rumble? Where's your head at?
The Gwen is going to be a really big one for me right here. I think that the Gwen has been such a good look. Flandre had a great performance on it in their previous matchup as well. As much as there were a lot of odd plays going on towards the bottom side of the map, he was holding down the fort in the top end, was having a really good time of it. The Yone also going to be something I'm looking towards as a potential pick back and forth for these teams. See where it actually ends up. And then, just as an aside, not necessarily because these teams have played it that much, but does the Skarner get completely unpicked, unbanned once again? Because that was a real surprise in the previous game.
First time it's happened in the LPL all year long. And we are nearly 4 months into 2025, so glad you called that one out as it came. And we do know that Tarzan has an MVP player of the game performance under the Skarner in the playoffs. So we'll see if Tarzan can get that coveted Skarner. Plays perfectly into his play style. The spirit of this team, for Anyone's Legend, needs to help them bring home a confident 3-1 to claim the top of the group once more. And for all the talk about the Skarner, Ultra Prime are like, nope. Does open up some of those other power picks to slip through at this point now. One of Ambessa, Jace, and Gwen will be a B1 if AL want it.
The Varus also, if you don't take this one off of the board, has been something I've seen a lot of teams be picking up for themselves as that B1. It's pretty safe in a lot of situations.
There's the Gwen.
We have been seeing the Gwen does go off of the board. There are a ton of priority picks available to be grabbed. But yeah, the Varus,
good call,
when you don't ban it out on red side, I think it's such an easy B1 to be able to pick up for yourselves.
So Hope's going to grab that one. Pretty safe bottom lane, like you mentioned. The usual responses here would be the Ashe. So has been the most often paired duo. We do know that Sejuani and Yone are both up. So we're going to get that coming through for Ultra Prime. Junhao and Saber going to play the most critical role, arguably, for Ultra Prime, as their comp identity has already formed around these two picks.
Here we go. We're going to go in. There's no other options. We are going in. And it is a great combo for a reason. So much fun to watch as well. Ooh, the Poppy could actually be really good here to just be able to disrupt a lot of what you want to do right here. Tarzan and Flandre could both play it as well, so it gives you a little bit of extra flexibility potentially. It will be the Aurora to round things out right now. Now, this AL composition doesn't particularly have a unique identity right now, and this is what we've been talking about with them, right? They haven't necessarily been picking all for one thing. The Aurora kind of wants to go in, but in very specific situations. The Varus will see if it's going to be the lethality or the actual just step up and auto attack version of it. Yesterday we saw a couple of on-hit Viruses that just didn't get to hit anybody at any point. It's definitely a lot safer to play the lethality version. At the same time, not particularly squishy champions on Ultra Prime at the moment, so that is going to be an interesting thing to look at later on. Ultra Prime, very strong composition identity.
Yeah, I will say, picking Ambessa knowing there's a Poppy is a slippery slope. Rough. We'll have to see how that looks. You've now given, wherever this Poppy goes, a couple of key options for canceling dashes with that steadfast presence. I'm glad that J-Span comes across for Ultra Prime, because with how flexible AL's comp is, you do need to take away some of those pretty powerful antidotes, especially knowing that this Varus could be lethality. Jace Varus is a very poignant poke composition. For AL, though, it's getting rid of Wako's champ pool, so the Kaisa band's really good, and the Ziggs, because they both actually fit pretty well into that forward composition we're talking about for Ultra Prime.
Absolutely. Those are the sort of dive-in comps that you love to grab. I am a little bit surprised that we haven't been seeing any support bans right now. There's a lot of very strong support still available. Mel is going to be the pickup for Ultra Prime. Interesting.
So that's support Mel. It has to be support Mel. It can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
It can't go into either solo lane.
Support Mel. Unless we're seeing something completely crazy. I would very much think that it will be. AL, they're hovering on towards top lane right now. I wonder if they might want something like the Renata. It's a really good pairing alongside the Varus and is great into these heavy dive-based compositions. Can really stop them from being able to work. The Seraphine that we saw in the previous game would also do a similar thing. Flandra is going to pick up this Scion, so it will be Tarzan on the Poppy in the jungle. This is what we were expecting, and I think that's why Jiang is happy to pick up the Ambessa in this matchup, because you don't think that the Poppy's actually going to be there. It's still going to be annoying for Jiang once we get into these later on into the game, but it's not going to be the end of the world. As much as having something anti-dive could be good, all of the strongest engaged supports are available, and they do go towards it. This composition really doesn't have any recourse for itself. Once again, they need it to start working.
So, okay, this is what I was curious about. Is Wako really about to play the first AP carry Mel in the LPL? If this Rakan hover goes across, I'm glad you pointed out the Alistair, though. Beefy frontline for AL. Back to the Varus discussion. This is as clear-cut of a game for me to be playing that on-hit Varus, because you called it out. If you buy enough space for on-hit Varus to get a couple of those autos through, get the Rage Blade going, it is a very powerful late-game champion to play for. And there's enough protection around it. This is a clear, defined strategy for both these teams. AL, survive and thrive. Ultra Prime, we're all going for it, baby. Let's hope something works.
Oh yeah, we're just going to be flying on in with this comp, and I think that's a very Ultra Prime way of playing it out, right?
I respect
very much the way that they like to make the game happen. Or AL's comp went ahead. The tankiness, like you've said, is crazy, but they don't have any real tools to be able to fully just stop everything that Ultra Prime are looking to do. The Poppy helps, most certainly, and the Scion is pretty good for that. But if you're beginning to fall behind, these tools aren't going to care. They're just going to be able to leap straight through you. It's going to be very tricky to play out. The thing is, we're going to have to watch what these individual lane matchups are actually about. Oftentimes, it's very much about the skirmishes. It will still be about the skirmishes, but these individual lane matchups are also going to be very interesting. Mid lane, there's a potential to this bot lane. Alistair.
That is going to be the question. I mean, we're all just going to be soaking this in together, right? Is what does Mel look like in the AP carry role? I've seen a couple places in solo queue, but this is a very different Mel that's had a lot of her damage ratios nerfed, I would say, nearly into the ground. So, Wako is about to teach us something. He goes with the Comet, wants to play at poke from range, and we actually actually see both of our AD carries going teleport, including a lethality Hope Varus. Were you expecting on hit as much as I was here, Bloxer, or?
Once the Mel was pulled out, I wasn't quite as certain. I think with the majority
Fair
of
enough.
standard ADCs, I would have very much been like, yeah, you're just going to be looking to sit back, poke people out, hit people because you've got so much front line. With the Mel, I think that the poke is all of a sudden a little bit better to be able to play. I don't necessarily know that I would have gone for it, though. Ultra Prime, they're a bit surrounded here. They don't know that.
Oh, Flandra. This is Scion Gaming as we know it. Lane swap,
There it
maybe
is.
taken away, but decimating smashes or not, that stun lasts forever.
Oh, no.
Waka wants to get to the wall to flash over, but Kyle says, no, no, no. The only way you're getting back to base is a gray screen. AL, first blood, kill on to Hope. What a perfect start.
Well, if you were hoping for a good Mel ADC experience, that's not the start that you would particularly have wanted to see. Like I said, this champion's damage scaling just bear fruit until a little bit later.
Do still have flash off of Kyle as well. The Hex Flash is available. Is Saber. This is a risky trade. Shanks is waiting on those cooldowns. Doesn't have enough to blow through the health bar, so we will relax. One of the things I'm interested to see the bottom lane interactions, we continue to talk about this Mel. The Reflect does actually work really well into lethality Varus, knowing that it's making so much on one arrow. If you hold it, I don't think you die. You really die a lot to Hope on this Mel.
Yeah, it's going to be very worrisome, right? Being like, I don't want to fire this back into myself, so you're going to have to think about it. Tarzan just going to take a big chunk out of Junhao.
Come on, you know the crazy man Tarzan on Poppy is 100% invading you constantly. So that's actually really big for Junhao, who is on a Sejuani that wants to be proactive on the map as early and often as possible.
Yeah.
No more red buff, no more Krugs. Going to be really far behind when it comes to XP in this early stage. Is Kyle. This stun should land on a Xiaoxia. Ignite comes across that last arrow, comes through the blitz of arrows as well. 2-0 start for Hope on this Varus. Exactly what we need to see from AL off that lost RNG.
Yeah, they needed to show us that they are still here to play. They're still the AL that we knew from split number 1. And this is the power, right, of the combo right here. Hope, Kyle just doing so much work because it is likely to be that poke Varus. Getting these early kills critical for getting yourself towards this build as quickly as possible. You don't want to be behind the curve on poke Varus because you just won't deal any damage with the lethality. If you're ahead, though, you can chunk out even the tanks because they won't be able to get to their items when they need to. Tarzan, once again, just going to step Junhao, and he's more than happy to do this. Junhao, you do not win this one.
No, you don't. Steadfast Presence going to help the cancel. Shanks had first roam from it, but he won't swing over. It's actually one Zhang who has the push into Flandra's Scion.
Doesn't matter.
Scuttle is an AL fan and pass back towards the mid lane and gives Tarzan another camp to steal away from Junhao as he continues to just play completely on the defense. And yeah, you called it. If Junhao was a bit later going to that brush, I think Tarzan straight up finds that solo kill. But instead, he might look to help out his top lane. This guy just wants to cover the entirety of the top side of the map right now.
Oh, yeah, very lucky right there for Jiang that that ward was just about still alive. If it had been a little bit more delayed, if Tarzan had stuck around in his opponent's jungle for a couple of extra seconds, the ward would have fallen, and that was a very gankable Ambessa at that point. Doesn't end up happening, and it's just going to be those 2 kills down towards the bottom side of the map. We've got an initial Hextech Drake, very impactful if you can pick it up for yourself. Stats that everybody loves to use. And a minute until the Grubs. The Grub fight is where I'm going to be looking. Who decides to roam over? Because right now, Tarzan is running the jungle.
See a lot of teams also maybe look for a full lane swap. That's what Thunder Talk went with last time up against RNG. It's going to be a pretty open back timer for Hope and Kyle to maybe play for that. We've talked about it endlessly. LPL has been a big fan of the Grubs. So topside orientation in the early phase is always a priority, especially when you're up 2-0 on your snowball 80 carry in this Varus. You can already see Kyle moving towards that Grub pit.
Yeah, immediately going to be moving his way on over to these Grubs. Exactly as you want to be doing with this Alistair. You and the Poppy are so good at stopping what it is that Ultra Prime want to be able to do for themselves. You can see them moving up into their opponent's jungle so boldly right now.
Oh, and Xiaoxia that's not your territory, my friend. Kyle just gonna ward him away. Junhao is homeless, man.
He is a bully.
He has not gotten to fully take his grubs without interruption this entire game. I mean, he does win most of them on the second turn, but this is just AL letting Ultra Prime know that the river is off access to them.
Yeah, river is a no-go, and the jungle is already a little bit risky. And because you know exactly where Junhao is going to be right here, very easy to go and pick up these grubs. Will the response onto the Drake be fast enough right here? Because Junhao had to take a recall right there. Now back out onto the map. He's got a Giant's Belt and a Ruby, so he is in an okay spot in terms of Sejuani power at this point. Still not necessarily sure that this means he's going to be able to easily pick this one up if Tarzan moves down. No, instead they are just going to do this as a 1-for-1 trade.
Yep. They've done the lane swap as well. They're buying even more wave space. Further AD carry is Shanks in a bit of a predicament, but Saber does have to return that spirit form, so he will be safe. I like AL macro approach to this game right now. They are just moving and humming across the map. Lane swaps, sectioning off jungle camps from Junhao, and making it just so hard to even take a dragon.
Do not allow Ultra Prime to get comfortable in this game. This team, very much, once they start to get ahead, seems to be pretty good at being able to run through a game. AL were obviously able to stop that in the previous one, but since you've already got yourself the advantage in this one, just keep the pressure up, constantly make it uncomfortable for Junhao to be able to play this one out. The Sejuani, such a strong pickup in this meta at the moment, picked alongside this Yone is a great combo for a reason. Misses that one though, that's unfortunate. Shanks, despite the fact he had Kyle in the area, may well have gone down there. A lot of damage would have been done.
These Sejuani players, man, in their drift tech on this Glacial Prison. It's fun to watch when it lands, but it's a little awkward when it doesn't. Shanks a bit quicker with his reaction time, so that ult does go down. And as we continue to talk about it, Ultra Prime really need to find angles to fight back into this game early with how proactive and damage-oriented this comp is. So every time you see Glacial Prison go down, those next 2 minutes, it's looking harder and harder for Ultra Prime to try and claw back in this gold lead and also just resource lead, because 6 grubs is not something you ever want to give up in the LPL.
No, really is. Not into a Scion as well, somebody who can side lane so effectively, especially when you've got the sort of composition that Ultra Prime do have for themselves. And Bessa, Yone, those are both champions who are very comfortable to sit themselves on a side lane. And with the grubs, the 1-3-1 becomes so powerful. Without them, although it's still something decent that you could try to play around, it's just not got that same level of oomph to it.
You have the safety of a lethality Varus that, once he's playing on mid waves with a couple of items, can just delete mid waves and never really be under threat. And it's just continuously Tarzan being a thorn in the side of Ultra Prime's plans. That's another ult down for virtually nothing. Saber using that Fate Seal just at the mere sight of Tarzan.
Tarzan just walking up and getting people's ultis with his
and now
aura
he's bottom
at
lane.
the moment. Now he's bottom lane using this Poppy so proactively. He actually flashes forward.
He is. Wako doesn't even actually have to end up burning that flash. It's always a bit precarious when Poppy and Alistair want to brawl early. There's not a ton of damage packed into those kits.
No, it would take a while to actually be able to burn through the health bar right here of Waco, but they're getting everything they really wanted. They get the flash, and they get time right here for Hope to be able to pick up turret plate. All of this CS, all of this experience as well that you ended up missing out on from that previous wave. Waco only just about now going to be able to rejoin. At least is able to stop the base out of Kyle. That is something technically, but really not a lot.
No, it's AL's map to play on, for sure. And Ultra Prime need to find a way to really open up space, because I'm with you, Bloxer. I think their ability to spread the map, if they have threatening Mbessa Yone items, could really put AL into a funk. But right now they are playing like the team that is expected to 6-0 this group and contend for another LPL title. And that's good to see after the RNG game.
Really is. We wanted to see a bounce back from AL. They want to be that top seed coming out of this group. They don't want to be down in the mire of all of these teams who are fighting, clawing their way to try to get up into the top 2. There doesn't feel like there's any real risk for AL of ending up down in the bottom, ending up in Group Nirvana. But still, you don't even want to be in that conversation. You don't want to be in the conversation of, well, maybe they'd end up there. Tarzan going to step up right here towards Junhao. Junhao looking at least to steal one away. Does manage to grab one at least, but still is going to be able to concede the other two. 5 grubs over to AL.
Well, I mean, we're using Glacial Prison to secure a grub. That is not the mark of a game state that you really ever want to be in. No. This top jungle, Tarzan is just marked off as his. He's controlling almost 3 quadrants of the map right now, and that's exactly what you want to see from your near MVP from split number 1. And now Wonjong may be the next target. Public Execution does actually hit Tarzan to get AL back under turret range. Good use of that ult, but they get a double teleport out of Ultra Prime. That's Wako and Saber. So who really does end up winning this exchange?
Very much AL, because look, you've got a big minion wave being pushed underneath the mid lane tower. You're going to have to blow your final teleport of the game onto Jiang to go bot lane right now and respond to this play. Oh, that sucks for Ultra Prime. It was well played out of Jiang. He actually didn't need the help of his friends. He was able to use that public execution to great effect to be able to dodge away from the headbutt pulverize, to stop himself from being caught out by anybody else, and just double TPs kind of ruined that one, forced Jiang to lose his teleport after a good outplay from him. At least he's managed to pick himself that first item, so this is going to be a pretty strong Ambessa, and we do have another Drake spawning in just a couple of seconds' time. For the minute, there's a little bit more pressure around the area for AL. They're getting to establish themselves a little bit of mid lane priority 2. But it could still be something contested right here, as Junhao's just headed back to base. We'll be back down here in time if there is to be a fight.
Bot lane swing towards the mid lane is we start playing for opening up more and more of the map. The best way to do that is knocking down that mid tier 1. And now Ultra Prime are in a spot where they can try and start leaning on some of this side laning. Their solo lanes are not particularly behind in any aspect versus who they'll be facing in Shanks and Flandra. But the time is definitely ticking. Flandra is going to get to a point with that Soul Furnace, where he's going to have so much more health. So maybe they'll finally look for a pick here. That's a great flash from Xiao to get a double charm down. But between worlds from Shanks buys him more than enough space. Kyle's Unbreakable Will is really hard to get down. And the Keeper's Verdict is going to save him. Tarzan to the rescue.
Oh, that feels so bad for Ultra Prime. They blow everything to try to pick themselves up those kills right there. Plenty of damage done. Resets are going to come through. Maybe they get the Drake off the backside, but Tarzan still wants to fight right here.
He is not done. He wants all of the smoke. But now it's Xiaoxia's turn this time to limp away from a fight with 1 HP. The Cloud Drake cannot secure a kill. He is not an AL fan.
Oh, nearly though, nearly. Xiaoxia had to turn tail and run right there. Hope dealing mass damage right now. Yomu's already completed this lethality virus, getting great things done. And on the backside of this one, Flandra taking plates on the Scion. A Drake still gonna be started up right here by AL first. Ultra Prime, they're getting turned around, run about at the moment.
They are in full reactionary tempo on this map state right now. And those plates soon are going to become turrets and allow for AL to really shut down the threat of this Yone and Ambessa. And without a lot of those key ultimates up and not a lot of cover, it's really hard to match the wave clear that Shanks has, Hope on this Varus has by this point, and the innate takiness of Flandra. Time is just ticking. I cannot stress enough how proactive we need to see Ultra Prime be, despite how narrowly close they came away to getting some kills.
Exactly, and it's interesting as a situation for Ultra Prime right here, because yes, they need to play proactive. Falling behind in this matchup is doom, but at the same time, their champions would really like to wait a little bit. Mel starts dealing massive amounts of damage at 3 items. Saber would love 3 items as well before his Yone really begins to pop off. But you don't have that time. You can't just sit around and wait for this to happen. The fact they've gotten themselves no kills so far, despite trying so hard, despite using so much, it's not that they haven't tried to be proactive, it's just not working.
They're definitely trying, though. I mean, these brush stacks. Junhao has just been read like a book by Tarzan. It's like Tarzan was the author of the scripture this guy's reading while playing Sejuani. Everywhere Junhao has been, Tarzan has been, and this game really encapsulates the difference a guy like Tarzan can make for his team. The spirit of AL, as their coach pointed out in that awesome interview prior to us getting to split 2. And he's been just that, the general for this team almost.
Being such a key member. And let's see what he can do in this one, because hey, they need to just clean house with this one, right? They really need to just take down Ultra Prime here, see what they can do. As we've got quite a few members hanging around towards this top side. Now, with the Herald spawning, hang on, Shank.
Oh, Shanks,
Is
this is not the position to be in. Finally, the stun chain lines up and a big kill over Ultra Primer on the board. Flandra teleports up here just a bit late. Shanks without flash, playing a bit too big for his britches.
Yeah, just stepping up a little bit too far and giving over the first kill of the game right here to Ultra Prime. Not going to be ideal. Still, was a good couple of ultis used, so this fight around the Herald going to be a little bit harder for Ultra Prime to play out. And Shanks does have the teleport to be able to rejoin his team if needed. Jiang going to be able to take down this tower in the bottom lane, so they're not losing out right now. This is better out of Ultra Prime. They're at least getting themselves a foothold back into this game. Still, the actual objectives are falling in AL's favor again and again. It really doesn't feel like Ultra Prime feel comfortable stepping up in a 5v5 at the moment.
They are starting to spread the map a lot better. Cross-mapping is polishing itself more and more. The Rift Herald traded for that first turret. And we are in a rare territory block. So I don't know if you noticed why. We're going to have feats of warfare decide the feats of strength. You don't see that happen too often, folks.
Yeah, it's quite surprising to see it happen like this, right? Usually you end up seeing it fall quite a lot earlier. They like to fight. This has been a very... As much as Ultra Prime would have liked it to have been a lot more aggressive early on. We'll see who's going to be able to step to, who's going to be able to actually pick themselves up. AL only needing one more kill is going to make this a little bit easier for them, but we could well see another big team fight happen. Really is going to be anybody's games for these feats. And AL, they are still in advantage in this game, up by almost 2,000 gold. It's not a massive lead, 17 minutes in, but it is still something that they can play around, and it's where the advantage is at the moment. 1.5 of that is on Hope at the moment. 2 items completed. Now the Edge of Night going to be that much safer once we get into these fights.
I'm glad you pointed out the Edge of Night, because the first 2 items come across for Hope, and it plays right into how safe AL want to be on the map, knowing that Sejuani, Yone, and Bessa engages are the real bread and butter of Ultra Prime. Now, you got to respect the Edge of Night. You can't just throw Glacial Prison Hope's way. You can't look for a snare off of this Mel. If that is up, you can't look for a charm for Xiaoxia if that's up. You can't understate how much one item is really going to limit Ultra Prime's ability to shut down, as you mentioned, one of the strongest members on the map right now for AL, that is Hope. But our attention has to drift back towards the bottom side of the map, because we have a pretty integral Chemtech Dragon coming up, and Voracious Otacon not far behind, with us only having 3 kills in about 20 minutes time.
Yeah, it was always going to be a Voracious in this one. This is one of the slowest early games that I've seen from the LPL. So far, the team's sort of just feeling each other out. Everybody going to be arriving for this play. Flandre is in the side. He's got himself the ulti as well. This could be a huge one if he's actually able to land it. Although, looks like Drake going to be started up right here by Ultra Prime. This is the first time they've actually started up an objective for themselves.
Yeah. All right, I want to see them commit. Let's fully commit to this dragon, or try and swing and cover mid. They're just going to burn through the dragon. All right, so they're comfortable trading mid-tier 1 for a Chemtech Drake. They are going to allow Tarzan to get a second crash here. You don't want to chase the Poppy. So good recognition from one of the veterans of the LPL. Ultra Prime, Glacial Prison down on the Flandra just to respect the might of this Scion. Change of Corruption going to find its mark onto Junhao, but it's just a bit of poking and prodding on both sides. But the power of those grubs really shining through. Shanks is able to actually sneak and burn down the mid-tier 2. That is 2 turrets for a lowly Chemtech Drake in the favor of anyone's legend.
Very much going to be better for AL in that situation. They're able to get a ton of gold off of the back of that one. Open up the mid lane as well so much. It's just going to allow them more access to their opponent's jungle, quicker rotations to everything key. Flandra's getting jumped here, but he doesn't care. Why would
I don't even think you had to burn ult. I don't even think you had ult there. There's no Glacial Prison, and you are like already 4,000 HP.
And Tarzan and Kael are stood
They're right there.
Yeah. I'm baffled by that one. That is genuinely wild out of Flandra. There was no need to ulti right there. You're Scion, you're tanky. Even if your mates weren't there, you'd still have been fine in that situation. We'll see if that actually comes to play, if this is going to be a big thing, him not having that ulti available, because like I said, Atakan is up and available. Is going to be that voracious, nowhere near as strong as it was when the Atakan was first introduced to the Rift. Still though, a nice prize to be able to get, allows you a little bit of extra confidence when stepping up the towers to other objectives if you can use it with good timing. Nobody particularly wanting to start it up for themselves without already won a team fight. If you do, that's a pretty easy way to lose a game.
I think a main reason why this game has been as slow as it has been is due to just 3 teleport threat on both sides, right? It's incredibly hard to catch your opponent in a position where they are forced to either drop critical waves or cover these side lanes, because even 80 carries can teleport back down to that Atakan. So
yeah,
I would be really shocked if either team just starts this thing up knowing that TP threat. It's got to be a fight that opens up the Atakan. And if you're Ultra Prime, you want to be the one starting fights, and 2, how nice would starting fights be with that revive available to you?
Oh, it would feel so good to be able to just pick yourselves up that one, not be worried about trying to engage onto these fights.
Caution to the wind, right?
Yeah, just send it, which is what it feels like Ultra Prime have already been trying to do for themselves a lot in this game, is just send it. AL being able to do the same thing with the Voracious Atakan would be great for them as well. Still, things are going to continue being a little bit slower. 3 kills in 20 minutes. Are we sure that we're watching the LPL right now?
No, I don't know what I'm watching, but I am intrigued by the approach for Ultra Prime knowing this draft. I'm still waiting to see what the secret sauce of this Mel pick is. I will say, can really scale heavily, but that does feel like a long ways away. So the rest of Ultra Prime are still really committed to trying to find these fight angles. You've got a Rakan, you've got a Sejuani that sets up the Ambessa and the Yone so well. Got to give a lot of credit over to Anyone's Legend with how resolved they've been. They're not willing to ever overextend outside of Shanks getting picked topside to give Ultra Prime any openings.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a very well played AL game so far. You see resets
patience
coming through. Waco
don't
is
make me eat my
not
words,
here.
guys. Please. Patience is a virtue, young Padawans. We don't need to play all out for the Atakan.
No. So many teams have thrown around Atakan. Voracious specifically, for some reason.
Definitely
People
Voracious.
love to just go throw themselves at it. But think about quite how much damage it can end up doing. There's the engage.
Okay. Kyle going in. They get
dead.
the lockdown, and Xiaosha's just burned through. Nice CC layering to pick off the Rakan. But AL, once again, they don't want to give an opening for Ultra Prime to start a fight. They know Rakan isn't a big credence for Ultra Prime to be able to play through their composition. So who do they lean on? The Scion that eats damage like cereal for breakfast. That Keeper's Verdict was so interesting because you knew that Saber had to come back to his spirit form, and now we're just breaking off all the locks from this game. Ults galore flying on each side, but it's Tarzan and Kyle that do end up getting out. One Shang teleported in just a bit too late, and look how much space Flandra buys. This guy ignores damage like flies on the human body.
Yeah, he doesn't care about that one. Just going to be able to step up. Another tower picked up here for AL2. And this game, despite the fact it's not been particularly explosive, has still just been AL slowly choking out Ultra Prime. And Ultra Prime, again, they go for a little bit of a potential play, trying to engage, trying to step up. But he just steps up in the wrong spot. You can't step up here. And I love how quick Hope is to follow up with the Chains of Corruption here. Immediately, in they come. And once the Chains of Corruption lands, then you get the E-off from Kyle, and there's just nothing you can do.
The value that Poppy showing. Tarzan canceled the dash back for Xiaosha, even through the Chains of Corruption. This Poppy getting all of its value from the draft. Like we talked about, though, AO was still a bit wary of starting the Octagon, so we go back to that same dance, battling for vision. And AL just hoping that Ultra Prime fall for the bait that is this Octagon, or maybe Flandra's Scion. It feels like we're right back where we were before that last fight happened. Kyle, I mean, he's Hex Flashing to get rid of blast guns right now. That's how slow the pace of this game is.
Oh, man, I do love to watch that, although this could potentially be the engage right here. Chains of Corruption are back up and available, so you do have the follow-up to that initial bit of engage, and the Dragon is just sort of being taken on the backside.
Good dodge by Shanks. There's the Glacial Prison through, but the Cabal Execution goes on top. Wonshong wants Shanks, who is going to have to flash out to safety, but they have Hope off to the side, trying to throw these arrows down. Kael's going to fall
Hope.
first, but Flandra's still in there. The furnace is all his. The heat is where he thrives, and Hope is firing arrows galore at everybody. Reflects down. Hope's going to step up, wants himself a third, has himself a third. This Forest pick is shining for anyone's legend, and the legend today is Hope with the quadra kill to break open the game.
Oh, when he got those first 2 kills, I was so hopeful Junhao was going to decide for some ungodly reason to stick around. The quadra kill, still incredible right there. And Hope just playing this lethality Varus to perfection in that team fight. Keeps himself just out of harm's way the entire time and then knows when to go in, knows when to step up and take space for himself. Atakan gonna fall to AL as well. And this bot lane has been popping off. It's the initial engage right here onto Shanks, but Hope is just stood by himself. Still by himself. Still, nobody's touching him. Now he starts actually opening up and dealing damage, but he is still completely untouched. He doesn't even lose the edge of night until this point in the team fight. And at this point, he's done the damage. Even if you die as Hope here, this is still going to be cleaned up on the backside for AL, but he doesn't. He doesn't die. He does what he needs to for his team.
And now we're really going to start revving the engine of this game. Voracious Octagon's available. Remember how much of a tyrant Tarzan was in the early game? Well, let's see what he can do now here. Kael's taking a big lick of damage, though. Doesn't have the unbreakable will, but here comes Flandra with the unstoppable onslaught. Who can he cut off from an escape route? There's the flying from Tarzan. Xiao's just marked as the first one to fall to the gray screen. Anyone's legends feel empowered by the Voracious Octagon buff, and they're looking to knock down anything in their sights.
Yeah, they're just going to be able to keep stepping up right here. So long as Hope is here throwing through those piercing arrows, there's nothing that Ultra Prime can do. And this is what we need to see out of AL. After they lose that game to RNG, a game that nobody thought that they should lose, we needed a bounce back game from them, and this sure is that.
Sights turned towards the Baron now. With Voracious Octagon, if you want the fights to come to you, just start this Baron. There is no vision in this river. Look at Junhao. This guy's worried about walking up past his red buff. There's a Baron being dropped off to the side, and maybe the Baron isn't the focus of the observers, as we might have a fight breaking out. Ultra Prime trying to force their way through towards the river. Baron is dropped by Tarzan, knowing a fight may be coming. They have Shanks caught off first. Wonshong uses the Golden Prison. They do have the Eclipse coming across from Waka, but it's not enough damage just yet. The revives are still on here, and Hope is still legendary. Fate sealed down after Hope, but Saber doesn't win the 1v1 into this Giga Chad of a Varus, and Flandra eats damage for breakfast. There's the first withdrawal, but it's not a shutdown, and it's going to cost Saber his life. Hope has himself double-digit kills in this big game up against Ultra Prime.
This is exactly what we wanted to see from Hope, exactly what we wanted to see from AL, and they're just going to keep running the Rift at the moment. The kills, they're just not falling here for Ultra Prime. Only 2 across the course of the game. And it's going to be onto the support as well for one of them. Just not working out. And Slayer, it feels wrong that we haven't spoken about this Mel ADC all game. But it's
I want
not
to give it time.
done anything.
I'm with you. We're always looking for innovation, right? The LPL has molded so much of the meta year after year. So I was like, oh, Wako, we're cooking, right? No, we're not. This Mel is invisible.
I feel like Mel ADC is the sort of pickup that kind of works in solo queue, because people are going to throw their worst ability straight at you for you to reflect backwards. It doesn't matter how much damage you actually do innately. If the people in solo queue are making bad decisions, which they will, I don't know that it's going to be a competitive pick right here, because you can see Wako's not actually getting big reflects off at all. Hope is never actually throwing these piercing arrows at him in opportune situations. Nobody's throwing anything at Wako. And like you said, with so much of the damage of the Mel taken out,
Baron's just gone, by the way. I mean, that's the might of AL's front line is fully imagined. Their tanks are all like 2 or 3 items. You can't walk past them. It is impossible. Look at Flandra. I mean, this guy's going to stand in front of 5 people. He doesn't care. Glacial Prison from Junhao. Ooh, that one's going to sting. So no engage onto Hope, and Wako just took half his HP from just the E from Varus.
And while this is happening, up in the top lane, Shanks is just pushing this one through. Going to be able to pick himself up a tier 2 tower in the top lane. Love the picture-in-picture here.
Flandra?
Who's going to be able to go back to base? nobody's actually gone to sort of deal with this.
This is the weirdest map state ever. Okay. Saber is recalling a Dragon Pit. Now he's back. They've lost an inhibitor turret. Tarzan's flying in. Oh my god, Hope just deleted this Mel. Waco's down again. Inhibitor next to fall. I mean, how do you even touch Hope right now? Maybe you go after Shanks, but Wonjong once again falls flat trying to find the Aurora. And I see AL maybe looking for the killer blow here. They've got the 5 grubs. They've got a Baron Wave. They've got their sights set on the Nexus turrets. The former grand finalist of Split 1 looking to get right back into tempo, right back into rhythm after everyone expects them to 6-0 the group. They may not accomplish that, but they're going to have themselves a dominating win over Ultra Prime to reclaim the top spot in Group B as they keep their eyes set on Group Ascend. And it's 2 more kills on the Junhao and Wonjong that are keeping them from that very goal.
Yeah, they're just going to look for it. Oh, one more piercing arrow would have done it. Oh, well, they're just going to have to settle for the Nexus, I guess. AL, a dominant win right there. Ultra Prime never got a foot in the door, were never able to do anything for themselves in that game. And AL, I wasn't certain about this draft. I wasn't sure quite how much they were going to be able to get done. But the Poppy was massive from Tarzan throughout the early game. And then once you get a few items, once you get yourself into a slightly better spot, this Varus was immense.
Yep. And Ultra Prime had a draft that in the new dawn of League of Legends that is fearless, I would have been like, oh, this was a Game 5 draft, right?
Yeah.
Like we just had a
run out of ADCs.
Yeah. No, this was a best of 1 pick. I hate to call draft gap when I do, but this one really stung.
Let's look at it, right? Let's look at what the Mel did this game. It got caught level 1.
Yep.
And then it did nothing else at any point in the game.
It cleared waves pretty well.
Yeah. There are lots of ADCs that clear waves, I would like to say. I feel like in terms of champions that can clear waves, ADCs are actually pretty good at that in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, pretty very high up on that ladder. I would agree with you. And it's even more head-scratching because you started so strong. Like, Sejuani Yone has been one of the premier red side 1-2s we've seen. And this Mel, it just comes out of nowhere. I mean, I'm looking back at this draft, like, the only 80 carries that were off the board when this pick came through was Ziggs and Kai'Sa.
Yeah. And, like, the Kai'Sa, I think, would have worked really well with this, so it does suck for Ultra Prime that you have the Kai'Sa taken away from you. But there are other ADCs that you can make work in this situation. We've seen it quite a lot when teams are going for lots of aggressive pickups in the top side of the map, and then they grab themselves a Jhin to sit back in the team fights, just open up with the ulti and deal your damage. Do some work for the team that way. It doesn't have to go flying in. There are other ADCs that can be more aggressive. Ashe, also a great pickup at the moment. As much as it wouldn't be, oh, this works perfectly with the composition. Well, Ashe, Sejuani, love that as a combo. We saw how good that combo could be in game number 1.
Yeah.
This Ultra Prime composition, if it had have gotten 6 kills right at the very beginning, gotten popped off, the Mel's the one who gets the first blood and is able to do things. You know, you're actually able to get that 2 items quickly onto the Yone, so you're doing work here. There's a chance. It's not the sort of composition that just, it literally will never work, but it only works in very specific situations into a team who's making a lot of mistakes, which isn't AL.
Yeah, very weird draft from Ultra Prime given the stakes of best of 1s, the matchup they had in front of them. Maybe they were just trying to catch anyone's legend lacking with a pick that they were not expecting. It falls flat. On the flip side, though, for AL, knowing how much pressure they have the most of this group coming into today, I feel like, I'm curious what you think, Bloxer. I think as slow and as much of a snoozer as that game was, I actually find it more impressive that AL played so patient than them just kind of coming out and getting 5 billion kills and running over them. I think this was a very key win, the way they won this one.
It's showing a way of playing that we really need to see out of AL because they can play the fast, crazy games. We've seen that from them time and time again. Being able to actually just sit back and kind of allow the game to happen to you a little bit more. I mean, look at this. Barely a gold lead for the first 20 minutes of the game. Nothing that you can't
Marginal.
overcome, but they get themselves enough of a gold lead, and it's that constant movement upwards. It's getting better and better for them until the point at which the big objectives start spawning, the Baron, the Atakan, all of those, and you can really draw 5 members in, and once they were able to do that, immediately they were able to just accelerate that gold lead. It never looked like the win was in question for AL from that very first blood.
And that is what you want out of teams that we consider title contenders. So AL back up on top of Group B for now at 3-1. This group is still pretty tightly packed. We'll get a bit more into that before we jump into our third match. But we have to have the discussion as always, Bloxer. You know, just like they awarded my boy Jalen Hurts an MVP after his play of the game, the Super Bowl, is Hope that Jalen Hurts pick in this one? I feel like it's the obvious. He was dominating.
If I'm sad about you not finishing the pentakill and only getting the quadra, yeah, I think that is your MVP of a game.
Good logic.
And that's not to say that everybody else on the team didn't do well. You cannot play this kind of virus without having people ahead of you, buying you that space, buying you that time. In another composition, in a differently played game, you don't get to, as Hope, sit back for the first 6 full seconds of a team fight, not hitting a single ability or skill shot, waiting for the team fight to unfold and then unleashing. But because he's got such tanky members buying him space, buying him time, then he's able to pick the correct moments to go in. I think Tarzan and Flandre also deserve a lot of credit for the way that this game played out.
Great
Tarzan
point.
especially for what he was able to do in the jungle early on. Just make sure Junhao wasn't able to get an advantage for his team. That was critical to this game too. But Hope, he stole the show. He was just able to do so much.
You're seeing the replays. I mean, if we're slow-moing piercing arrows, do we even need to, like, waste any time with this MVP pick? I really don't think so. And the overarching theme here for AL, I know we're really early into Split 2 with, you know, building them out from this group. They've had their struggles. But going back to the conversations we were having as they made their playoff run, right? If we're going to see AL be an LPL champion team, you're not really worried about Flandre, Tarzan, even Shanks to a degree. It's, can this bottom lane play to the level as the rest of the squad? And it's good to see this game showed that they can do that.
Yes, especially because they'd had a couple of games in the first round robin where it wasn't necessarily Hope being able to pop off in quite the same way. This virus looked like a great pick. It's the reason we were highlighting it during the draft phase, right? As a potential B1. So strong at the moment, but it's not just the champion. I've seen plenty of people take the B1 virus and then do nothing on it. You can find success with it. You can also find just horrible game states for yourselves. Hope played this one so well, a very well-deserved player of the game. 6,000
gold difference at the end. That really says it all with 100% kill participation. Yep, 11-0-4. The bar for a superstar level Varus game, lethality, is that one. So thank you very much, Hope. Congratulations on your player of the game. Good to see Anyone's Legend, a team we hyped up as a potential title contender for the LPL, looking polished as ever against Ultra Prime. They go to the top of Group B. They are at 3-1, but now we get into the real meat and potatoes of Group B. We've got 2 teams tied at second and third, and our 4th place squad not too far behind as well. And we've got a banger coming up, folks. Anyone's Legend will be taking on Thunder Talk after we return from the group. We'll see if our Titans are back to their godly glory or if Thunder Talk got some more magic from Split 1 in them. We'll find out after another short intermission. Welcome back, everybody, to the unofficial LPL English broadcast as we look to reach the midway point of our second round robin showcasing Group B. It's time to bring in two teams that, just a split ago, were both in the upper bracket of the LPL playoffs. But you wouldn't believe that knowing how this matchup went last time, Bloxer.
Yeah, I mean, you'd certainly believe that AL were there, but Thunder Talk, they got rolled. They got rolled in kind of the same way we just watched Ultra Prime get rolled. It was a complete and utter domination. Yeah, 23 55-minute game where Flancher just, I think he turned Hoya inside out. Like, there was nothing Hoya could do at all in that matchup. It was a Kali into Gwen, and the Gwen most definitely came out on top.
I think that game really started the conversations about if Hoya was saved a lot by the lane swap meta, because we talked about how key of a role he played weak side for Thunder Talk, and if the laning was pretty questionable. So I am curious if Thunder Talk are maybe going to try and lean into giving Hoya a pretty nice matchup in this one. They are going to be on the blue side this time. Oh no, they're going to be on red side, if I remember correctly. I believe it was AL on the blue side. So we'll see if they can counterpick him into a nicer matchup. We're still waiting for the Thunder Talk-esque composition to come through here. I feel like we haven't had a single game of it yet.
No, it feels like even in that massive victory they just had up against RNG, it was not a very Thunder Talk composition. They made it work like a Thunder Talk composition. They were using things like the Ryze and the Seraphine as aggressive, full, all-in engaged champions, flashing forward, great repositions on a couple of plays out of Feather. Really impressive game from all of them, but it isn't their kind of composition. We expect their kind of composition is just all-in potential, baked into the very fabric of it. I'd like to see it. I feel like if you're going to pull it out up against anybody, AL's a pretty good team to try do it against. Ultra Prime tried really hard to get aggressive, but they had a Mel as the ADC. I feel like as long as Thunder Talk don't do that, maybe an aggressive composition will work better.
Pretty low bar to clear at the start. Yeah, but it is important to remember that anyone's legend, I've preached this a couple of times, you know, they're coming off a grand finals appearance. They are looking a lot more polished in this group than Thunder Talk are now. They've had Thunder Talk's number in the last matchup. So the big question becomes, Bloxer, how do you want Thunder Talk to approach this to put together a performance that was RNG-esque, one would say?
I want to see them drafting aggressive, as we've been saying, and then I want to see them not be scared of the fact that AL, they're going to punch back. I don't think there's any situation in which Thunder Talk just completely take out AL, don't lose any kills, you know, don't get pushed back. That's not who finding these team fights. Don't get pulled into what Ultra Prime ended up doing by the end of that game, where they were just kind of watching objectives go down. We watched the Baron go down, and I was making a different point because, well, there's nothing to say. The Baron's going, but there's nobody else on your screen, despite the fact that Ultra Prime were well aware it was happening. They just couldn't step up. I don't want to see Thunder Talk get pulled into that kind of play. I want to see them be aggressive in the draft and use that the whole way through the game.
And stakes-wise for the group, right? So AL are at the top currently at 3-1. A win here would relatively lock up. I think it would all but lock up the number one seed, right? Because we currently have Thunder Talk and Ultra Prime. They're both sitting at 2-2. Yep. The only thing that would really keep them away from it is if Ultra Prime somehow went on a run beating AL and also had the better game time. So this is big for AL to lock up number one. And also, Thunder Talk, they win here. They at the very least don't go straight to Group Nirvana. So a win, this may be the biggest win for either one of these teams so far in Group B. That is the nature of being just 3 games away from Group B coming to a conclusion.
The stakes just keep getting higher and higher and higher, and because you are now playing your second game of the day, after this one, there's only one more. There's only so much you can do off of one more game to really change your fortunes. Thunder Talk, I think they've done the hard bit for themselves today, which was beating RNG, making it so it's incredibly unlikely that they end up as that 4th seed out and out, at least getting a matchup between them to be able to see who's going to be down as that 4th seed. But I think Thunder Talk, especially after what they had last split, would be disappointed with only being the 3rd seed coming out of today. I think they will look at themselves as being better than Ultra Prime. That does mean that losing here up against AL is not the end of the world. It would be a lot more impactful for them to beat Ultra Prime, getting themselves that 2nd seed, getting themselves straight into Group Ascent. I think that's more what they're looking for here.
You know what would be funny, though, Bloxer, as we're waiting for this draft? Knowing... Think about this, right? The two teams that are in Group Nirvana right now, are EDG and LNG. If Thunder Talk somehow end up in Group Nirvana, Group Nirvana would have nearly the same group identity as the very group that Thunder Talk topped from Split 1. That would be something.
And hey, I most definitely think that Thunder Talk look like a better team than LNG or EDG. The bar is in hell, but still they do definitely look better than those two. The other would be BLG, the only team we'd be missing, who have already locked themselves up Group Ascent as everybody expected. But I don't think anybody expected us to really be talking about Thunder Talk as a potential Group Nirvana team. They shouldn't be. Even if they do end up as the third place team, they still look pretty good in terms of the other third place teams that we've got so far. Still, you want to get it done here. You want it all to be on your own shoulders. You don't want to be watching the scores of the other teams thinking, oh, we really need this person to get an upset here or we're going down.
Yeah. Thunder Talk is... Let's bump my win rate up on your casts again after the fall on the first day, and a win here keeps you out of Group Nirvana conversations almost in its entirety here. Really sets up a fun game for them against Ultra Prime, but let's stop looking too far ahead. We've got a draft in front of our very eyes now with Thunder Talk on that blue side. I guess I got completely switched around, so don't have to worry about a Flandre Gwen this time because AL want to give the respect band over towards that champion. Are we going to land in the same spot as the last Thunder Talk draft where Skarner is open for Beichuan? Let's see if AL want to dare them to be one it. And they will. Once again, does Beichuan take the bait this time round?
I think the answer is going to be no again. Although with the Sejuani gone, that was the pick that he decided he preferred it for.
Do you want to give it to Tarzan, though? I mean, come on.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to give it to Tarzan. I wouldn't want to give it to anyone.
Here we go.
This is why I wouldn't be surprised if he still just lets it go. They hovered it last time. I think locking it in here is the right decision. I just don't know that they will.
Here we go.
I like this. Good job, Thunder Talk. You've passed the first test that has been presented to you. And actually, because the Varus, the Sejuani have been taken off of the board, it's taken a lot of the best junglers away already. The Vi is still up and available, though, and that has been the highest priority of the junglers so far. It doesn't get banned out that often, has still been very strong.
Oh, I'm going to have to... Don't make me do it.
No,
I will. I don't want it to be first. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to. Okay, I did it for you, Mark. I hope Mark's... I actually know Mark is not watching, but we got the dog. The dog's out the cage. We're going to get Tarzan Nefiri performance.
Wrong dog. It's the wrong dog. This is not the dog that I want to be casting right now. Fine. It is going to be another Nefiri game right here, and it's so very different to what you're trying to do on the Skarner. The Skarner is so much about these big team fights, trying to get these ganks going on early. As Tarzan right here, you need to get early kills, and then you are just weaving your way through the early stages of the fights, trying to get yourself a pick before the rest of the play comes to fruition. Shanks also going to grab himself the Rise. Setup had a pretty good performance on it previously, but I'm still going to maintain that I haven't been particularly impressed with the majority of Rises we've been seeing. They haven't been particularly aggressive with it, kind of just get on pushed around in these lanes. Is going to be the Talia into that lane, so we're not going to see a particularly explosive mid lane, and this is much more about who can use their utility ultis better.
Yeah, who can play the map a lot better. Here's a pick that I'm shocked we even ended up getting through back to blue side. Jace has been a really high prio ban champion alongside like the Skarners, the Gwens, the Ambessas, the Rumbles, the Varuses you're seeing. So I really feel like you just want to slam Jace if you get it, but instead, Thunder Talk are going to pick up the Misfortune, which makes 1xN pretty one-dimensional in this one. And you're looking to... Whenever you lock in MF, Blockster, it's one thing, right? How can we get the most value out of bullet time? Because if you don't get any value out of it, why are you picking Misfortune?
It's a wombo combo composition from Thunder Talk. Now, this is their bread and butter. This is what we've been talking about in terms of the kind of comps that they love. I do prefer 1xM with a little bit more mobility, something he can actually move around in team fights on, but we keep seeing him on the Ashe at the moment, and that's no different to the Misfortune. So I don't mind it, and it works very well alongside the Talia and the Skarner. I think these two champions work very well in combination, but it's going to be interesting to see what the support is that gets paired alongside it. The Rel also works very well as a combo, so can the Alistar. See if AL decide to take those away. Also, picking MF into a composition that you can already see a Nefiri in is a risk, just straight up, because the Nefiri will love that as a potential option to go for.
Nefiri is salivating at the idea of just being able to dash onto a Misfortune. You don't. So, yeah, I'm just. The alarm bells, we're going to talk about multiple times, that this could just be a Tarzan masterclass, the way he can run with this Teferi, one of the most overpowered champions. But let's see how the rest of these compositions do end up coming together, because AL did not take the approach maybe you were looking for here, Bloxer. Instead of targeting Feathers Champ Pool, they're going to try and punish Hoya, which has been shown to be the way to beat Thunder Talk down early, take away Hoya's comfort champions, and keep him out of the lane. But that is an intriguing prospect to do into Scion, knowing that Flandra also is not really going to be playing for lane.
No, Flandra had a great performance on the Scion in the previous game, so I can understand why you would want to return him to it. At the same time, though, it's not going to have that same level of lane priority, or at least it shouldn't. I guess if Flandra does manage to make Scion look like a Gwen, crown him as the best top laner I've ever seen, but very unlikely to actually see that one come through. AL, currently, they're hovering on towards their bot lane. They still need both their ADC and their support. Plenty of the strongest ones are still available, and they're going to grab the Kai'Sa, so this composition is going to be looking to dive in. Hope going to be joining up right here with Tarzan into the back line, and this makes it even harder to play this one out as 1xN. He had a great game previously, but does he live? Does he get to hit a single bullet time in this game?
No, he doesn't. 1xN, man.
Good luck, buddy.
Yo. Let's start prepping for the Ultra Prime game, man, because you can go on autopilot. I don't know what you can do to even. I don't know what you can do to really impact this game state. They're gonna give him the Alistar to buy some peel. I mean, Talia does play pretty well into champions trying to dash through those slip ring stones, but it is a rough angle for this misfortune. Hoya hovering some of his duelist champions.
Yeah.
The Camille was really famous in Split 1 for solo killing Bin himself on it. So Hoya, knowing the Scion matchup, is going to play to win lane. This is something that Thunder Talk rarely, if ever, do.
Yeah, they're very much about trying to play for the all-in team fights, and so prefer to have tankier champions up in the top lane, or at least more bruiser styles that can get involved in these fights, buy a little bit of extra space for 1xN and Setab to be able to do their thing. Instead, you're looking to really play through this top side because this Misfortune cannot be relied upon to be that big AD damage. You needed something else to be able to try to play around. And I don't think the Camille's a particularly bad option in this game. It's just such a wild draft. To be honest, out of both of these teams, this is not the standard League of Legends that we've been seeing, but to be fair, both AO and Thunder Talk are top tier when it comes to picking weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we already showed an intriguing graphic about AL. That very graphic also showed the weirdest Thunder Talk draft with the Akali top and the Ambessa mid. So we'll have to take all this with a grain of salt, knowing that these teams are cooking up something that we're still trying to understand. But looking at these two drafts, Bloxer, what are the objectives for either side to really find a win here, in your opinion?
So it's very one-dimensional right here out of Thunder Talk. The only wrinkle to this just being a straight-up find that Misfortune ulti composition is how hard can you win lane right here in the top side on this Camille.
Yes.
If you can completely take over the game against this Scion and then become a side lane threat to end all side lane threats, and it's going to have to be a mega performance right here out of Hoya to be able to do that, then all of a sudden your composition doesn't seem quite so one-dimensional. Otherwise, Misfortune, hit the ulti. 1xN, you're the man. Show it to us. Prove why everybody has so much faith in you. It's a lot more of a diverse composition right here out of AL. You can reposition yourself a lot through this ulti with the Rise. You can try to just front to back a little bit because you've got a Scion and a Nautilus. But I think what AL are actually going to want to do is Flandre and Hope are going to go flying into the backline with their ultis, with everything that they've got in their kits, and just try to make pain for 1xN.
I think Tarzan has the MVP-like performance in his sights. We saw last game for AL on stage. He was shutting Junhao out of his own jungle on Poppy. And now he's playing arguably the most overtuned champion in the game, especially for the jungle, on this Neferi. Tarzan, the spirit of anyone's legend, as they look to get back to winning ways atop Group B. No better spot than this game.
No, AL are already going to be disappointed in their group stage performance, dropping that single game here to RNG. They're not going to be looking for a repeat performance of that one. Instead, they're going to look to crush Thunder Talk. Both of these teams, though, coming off of incredibly dominant wins in game number 1 of today. This is going to be the biggest task for them yet. And Thunder Talk, they have drafted themselves a very them composition, all about the team fight, all about getting themselves into a good enough spot in team fights so they can just use their extra aggression and prowess over their opponents. Now, in the first Thunder Talk game, we saw the Skarner not picked, not banned. That's not happened before at all this year in the LPL. This game, Bechuan does get it, and the Skarner is so strong, there's a reason that it's been on the ban table as much as it has.
And it feeds right into how Bechuan is the tip of the spearhead flying through for Thunder Talk. It is his first stage game on this Skarner. So we'll have to see what he brings to the table with that very pivotal champion, like you pointed out. Both junglers are going to be starting for top-down clears, looking to move towards this bottom lane, but I'm expecting anything but standard clear here from Tarzan. If he's going to approach this game the same way he did against Ultra Prime, might just try and race and cut off access to Bechuan's camps, knowing that this Neferi is just unmatched in a jungle 1v1.
Oh yeah, and I mean, Skarner usually wouldn't be any slouch, but the Neferi just does ridiculous amounts, especially with the Conqueror right now, going to make it that much easier to be able to chunk through Bechuan's health in one of those extended fights that the Skarner would usually love so much. For the minute, they are just going to be moving towards opposite sides, and the Skarner does have an incredibly quick clear. You can see already well on his way to having cleared out these chickens, as Tarzan already trying to keep himself up. At the same time, it's not going to be too much of a worry to fall behind in terms of just pure clear speed versus this Skarner, because you're not so much focused on these ganks. Tarzan more going to be looking to sit in his jungle, farm himself up to a first item, and that's when you're looking to go in on this Neferi.
Yeah, the solo lanes for anyone's legend this time around are really about playing a patient game with the Rise. Oh, Bechuan, that's going to disappoint some of the clear speed 80% speedrun junglers that we know in League of Legends.
He's messed that up, and he's still way
still ahead. Yeah,
it's insane just how fast this Skarner can clear. It's such a strong pickup, even with the nerfs that we've seen for it. It's come down from the highs of getting banned, what was it, 82 times in a row? Not getting seen a single time up until playoffs, to at least, you know, occasionally people let it through. But still, they are now going to scrap a little bit around the bottom lane Scuttle Crab. Bechuan getting jumped.
Yeah, Tarzan wants this fight here. Bechuan just doesn't have the damage to really answer. Who is going to find the call first? It's Feather flying with a headbutt. Kyle does land the dredge line on a Bechuan. What makes sense here? Here comes Hope as well, but Bechuan's going to fall. It's the Doll getting the first blood for Tarzan. Mid laner's trying to join the fray, but it's just Tarzan finding so much value. Good seismic shove from Saintab to find a trade, but Hope has the lethal tempo stack. The plasma stacks. 1xN has nowhere to turn. No flash out, so he's just going to go for blow. Makes it another trade. Trades galore. It's like we're on the stage. We're at the NASDAQ right now, trading kills like stocks. 3-3 at the end of the day.
My lord. Skarner no flash. Talia no flash. Misfortune no flash. Alistair no flash. Same thing over on the other side. Only the top laners have flash in their pockets at this point. Everybody using every available tool in that bot lane matchup. And we're going to watch it back through. As you said, this is exactly what Tarzan wants to do. He wins this 1v1, even when getting stunned into the wall. And neither of these junglers have the smite. So the fight over the Scuttle Crab is fake. It's not actually a fight over the Scuttle Crab. It's an excuse to brawl each other. But it's the way that 1xN and Feather get here first. The Feather flashing in at the beginning of this fight. Obviously, it doesn't land because the Neferi just has the invulnerability, the untargetable. So it's a bit of an interesting decision. Still, 1xN makes the most of this one, gets that final auto off to be able to pick up that kill, and then these two also gonna just use the last flash. His Saintab just about managing to avoid out from that W, otherwise that would have been one dead Talia. But looking at the winners and losers out of this one, you get 2 kills onto 1xN, 1 kill onto Saintab. Both ADs getting 2 kills, but also Tarzan picks up a kill. So it is going to be a little bit of an advantage, I'd say, to AL. You want to have that Neferi getting ahead.
The small win for Thunder Talk is they did get the third kill first by a matter of mere autos. So they do have feats of warfare. I know not, and everybody's kind of cooled off on those boot upgrades, but It's the small margins that you need to win if you are Thunder Talk, the underdog of this matchup against anyone's Legend, especially knowing how quickly their last matchup went down. And part of that was this very part of the map. Flandra running Hoya, and his Scion doesn't look like a weak side Scion right about now. He's going to spoon feed Tarzan a kill. Perfect prediction on the hook shot. And oh boy, the pack is getting hungry.
Yeah, second kill going over to Tarzan right here. This is also going to be a massive minion wave pushed in right here underneath the tower. And Hoya had only just teleported back into this bottom lane. So this is a devastating play right now. And we talked about how Hoya decided to go for his more aggressive pickup was a big risk. If you get yourself a big advantage, then wonderful. Camille from behind sucks. There's no two ways about it. Camille from behind is not going to give you anything. And even if you put a Scion behind in this matchup, I don't know how much that actually gives to you. With this sort of wombo combo composition that was already being picked up for Thunder Talk, it just leaves me with so many questions as to whether or not a more standard top laner would have been good. Even something like the Ornn.
Look at AL right now. They're just moving around the map so much better than Thunder Talk. Once again, it's a complete jungle section cut away from TT, just like Ultra Prime a game before. Satab barely survives the first skirmish. Hoya's so underdeveloped at this point that he's having a hook shot back towards the turret and sacrifice his support. Feather falls, and Hoya just now being able to pick up a couple of these minions, but here's a Realm Warp forward. Shanks taking a page out of Satab himself, trying to force this dive onto Hoya. Does have the Hextech ultimatum, though, and that makes any dive a bit more scary, but it's AL still scaling up for dominance with their map play.
Yeah, they are running the map at the moment. 1k the gold lead for themselves. They're also able to pick themselves up an early Drake. The grubs did go over to Thunder Talk, so that is something, and they would love to have all of these grubs. If you can get a ton of grubs onto a side lane Camille, that would help. That would be something for them to potentially try to play around, but you can see it in all of the graphics being pulled up at the moment. They're just behind in pretty much every lane, every situation right now are Thunder Talk.
And this is what we expected out of anyone's Legend. Remember, both of these teams ended the first round robin with a sour taste in their mouth. The RNG upset, Thunder Talk dropping 1-2, dropping a game to Ultra Prime. We flashed the graphic up. Ultra Prime, they finished in the teens in so many LPL splits. But there's just a difference right now, even if TT were the Giant Slayers of BLG in the regular season, between AL and Thunder Talk, and it's showing, at least in this early phase.
Yeah, so far, AL most definitely running this matchup. And we'll see what Thunder Talk are going to be able to do to get themselves back into this. Because the thing is, with this kind of composition, with these wombo combo misfortune comps, you just have to get that perfect fight once, where all the setup actually hits, lands, and you're able to get that full bullet time off onto your opponents. It's a great way to be able to get your team back into this game, but the setup can be incredibly tricky, and beginning to fall behind at this point means that you're not going to be ahead in terms of damage. You're not going to be able to just cut through people with the ulti straight up. Hoya, he's under his tower. I don't know that that saves him potentially. Okay, Tarzan not going to go for it. Doesn't want to potentially give over a kill. I want to die, but still, Hoya, he's just taking so much damage in this matchup right now. You pick the Camille to try to do something into the Scion. It's tricky anyway. It's just not happening.
It just sucks. This is the matchup that has been the most one-sided between these two teams. And yeah, sure, you could have like kind of waved off the last time Flandra dominated Hoya, be saying like, oh, he got the Gwen, right? Gwen is so overtuned. Yeah. This is Scion into Camille. This isn't even the same ballpark as their last matchup, but it's still Flandra finding success here. Beichuan, though, looking to find angles on other sides of the map, going after Shanks. Does have the Impale, was waiting for the flash. Shanks is going to flash away from the turret. I love this wall from Satab, though. Shanks has no way to escape. That's the proactivity TT showed in their win over Ultra Prime as they find a critical kill.
I like that play so much between Satab and Beichuan. That's what you need to do between these two. Get yourselves a couple of kills early. And Beichuan, especially, using the Impale straight towards the tower, pretty much only giving Shanks one potential out. And just gets cut off with that Weaver's Wall from Satab. It's something. It's another kill, and it does go over to the key member. Satab is going to be a big part of the damage profile of Thunder Talk. If he falls behind these tanky champions, Flandre specifically, is going to become almost unkillable. He needs that threat of magic damage coming through, otherwise there's nothing you can do about him.
First item breakpoints. Good point. Time as any to talk about them. Hope with those 3 kills after his MVP Deathless Varus performance, 3-0. Already has the Kraken Slayer done, signaling he's going to be playing that sort of AD-centric basis Kai'Sa build, looking to burn through this Skarner's health bar, this Alistar's health bar. We might have a fight before we talk more about these items. Kyle lands a dredge line on a feather, uses the dredge line on to 1xn, so the depth charge is down 1xn. Wants an ankle to use that bullet time, but he's got the pack on top of him. Tarzan going to disengage for the time being as Beidchuan does get the ignite thrown over him. Satab flashing with the seismic shove. In goes Hoya, the underfed Camille trying to set up the rest of his team, but down goes Feather first. Shakes is able to survive. Kyle, all these low health bars making no difference, but it's Hope flying in with the killer instinct on his mind to once again run a fight for anyone's legend. Satab has to fly out. It's a multi-kill play for Hope, and maybe even more as Tarzan gobbles down one final kill. Satab, that turret will not save you. It's a full moon. The pack is hunting. Here comes Tarzan, and the Nefiri once again claiming more blood on Summoner's Rift in the LPL.
It's a disaster of a fight right there for Thunder Talk. They think they can re-engage onto this one, but like you said, underfed Camille doesn't manage to even land the hook shot and just has to jump in with the ulti. It doesn't work out right here, and Thunder Talk, they lose so much off the back of that. At least because we're early on into the game, the respawn timers are quick. Beidchuans are able to get here and actually is going to be able to pick up all 6 of the grubs. It's something. It's not a lot, but it is something. As why is my question on the ring.
When can 1xn ult in this fight? That's my question for you, Bloxer.
At no point. He's getting chased around constantly. I wasn't even sure that Tarzan was going to survive through this one. I knew that he still had himself the invulnerability, but still, he dove in very far. This, though, is a mistake, right? When you ulti on the Camille, you push everybody else out, which usually would be a good thing, but it just buys the space that AL desperately needed in that team fight.
Oh, boy. Oh, Kyle?
Wait,
nope, can't knock Satab off the wall. I think he was trying to get I think Kyle was hoping like you get the auto attack through still, so he roots him off of the wall, but Satab will end up surviving. But it's anyone's legend with a ton more tempo in their hands right now. They've got the gold behind them. They've got Flandra, who is once again looking to be unkillable, and a Kai'Sa that will do all of the killing here. I am worried about this dive, and it's 1 versus 3. 1 versus 4.
4. 5.
Everybody wants Flandra right now. All right, let's see how long he can survive. Flashes out the first one. All right, but the Sunlock lands. I mean, they brought the entire squad. Everyone's here to pack out Flandra. So you got the kill, but at what cost, Bloxer?
Wait.
Oh, that was so treacherous.
That kill there, if you get a 1v5 return kill, that would have been insane in that situation.
Look at the rest of the map right now. I mean,
they're losing out massively for this one. They're going to lose a bot lane tier 1. They're going to lose a ton of damage off of this mid lane. I don't know quite that Hope's going to be able to fully pick this one up, and all you're returning it for is 1 tower. And yeah, you do take it a lot quicker, but still, even despite having all 6 grubs, Thunder Talk are going to miss out on having that first tower blood. Really unfortunate for them in the way that this game has panned out.
I do think 6 grubs, though, is going to limit a lot of the snowball potential for anyone's legends, right? Because they just don't even have the Void Touch passive on these turrets. It's going to limit a lot of their ability to knock down mid-tier 1 and top-tier 1. Misfortune is one of those champions that is relatively safe trying to catch waves, especially into a Kai'Sa.
Yeah.
And with Flash coming up soon, it's going to be hard for them to break open. So my question becomes, for you, Bloxer, how do anyone's legends break open the map? And maybe I don't even have to ask you, because we're once again seeing an aggressive Realm Warp. This is the new Rise.
There we go.
I think Bloxer's liking it.
I am indeed. That's exactly what I want to be seeing right here from Shanks. Not too surprised to be seeing him playing out a very competent Rise game at the minute. And yeah, you're asking how we crack open the game? Well, let's use the Realm Warp to go get ourselves picks at the moment. The re-engage on teamfights is awesome. The movement around to start out teamfights on the flanks, also great. But at this point in the game, you're not really looking for that with the Realm Warp. Right now, it's all about trying to get yourself as many picks as possible. And right now, Thunder Talk, they're going to go back to what worked previously.
Again?
Although it only just worked in the previous
Hold on,
try.
guys. This is 4, not 5.
Yeah.
Can Flandra, is that the difference maker? Man, oh man, a lot of time to burn through this turret. You're lucky you've got a full tank Skarner. Flandra dies again, and They're farming Scion Gold as often as they
Oh,
can,
no,
but
say it,
on the other end of the map, it's Hope flying in. All he needed was one depth charge, and he's got himself his 6th kill in a row. That is a 17-0 scoreline for Hope right now across his 2 games today.
Hey, he's just popping off on one, and they're going to pick themselves up the mid lane tower as well. Another play out of Thunder Talk that works technically, but doesn't really get them anywhere. They're still bleeding out gold. They're still going to be down by 4,000 at this point in the game. And it just doesn't feel like they can actually get their way back into the game. Yeah, you can keep farming kills onto the Scion, but what you're losing across the rest of the map is not making it worth it.
And what a staple performance from Tarzan. I know we're highlighting Hope. He's got the flashy scoreline. He is very fed on another AD carry, but Tarzan on this Nefiri pick. Everyone was hoping to see this guy play this overpowered champion. And what has he done with it in this game? 10 of 11 kill participation all over the map, constantly making the right moves. It is so hard to not see why this AL coaching staff labeled him the spirit, the engine that runs anyone's legend. And when it is revving on all cylinders, they look like a team that deserved to be in that grand final, so they can compete in the LPL and potentially on an international stage.
Absolutely. I think it would be a dang shame to not get to see these guys at MSI. But of course, there's a lot of LPL left to play. There's a lot left to play in just these placements to go. But still, going to be looking to get a little bit more pressure onto these towers. Hoya has been having a very bad game so far. And once again, he's not allowed to farm. He's on 100 CS.
This is once again shades of that Ultra Prime game where AL, they're daring the enemy team to try and fight them, or they'll just take all the resources off the map. Feather gets the memo. They're going all in for Kai L. Good seismic shove, tons of damage. The Nautilus is down first. Flandra off to the side, trying to maybe find a pick onto 1xN as that very tanky Scion. But for the first time, we do see AL on a bit of a back foot here. Flandra, you making me eat my words, trying to set up the wolf back to fly on in. And just like that, with a snap of a fingers, Tarzan has his first kill. Hoya with the Hexing ultimatum gets absolutely no value because here comes the dog. Flying in once more. Bullet time being dropped through. Tarzan gonna have to flash over it. Beitwan's chasing him down. Doesn't need the install in back, but it's Hope to bail out his jungler. The dogs live, and it's Hope to bail out a narrow fight in the favor of anyone's legend.
Oh my lord. I cannot believe that Tarzan lives on that one. Thunder Talk, they saw it. They saw their moment. They saw what they needed to do. Pick up the kill. Finally, 1xN actually gets to ulti during one of these team fights.
First time this game, by the way.
Doesn't happen. Yes, literally the first time this game. And it doesn't work. And we'll have a look at why this doesn't work. This initial play right here out of Thunder Talk, I'm very happy with. You pick up this kill. At this point, in my head, I'm like, back away. Run. Please stop going in. You can walk up to your tier 2 tower in the mid lane right now and end this play up. That's a good play for you. Just getting a kill onto a support when you're this far behind is fine. Instead, they just keep on going in. Beitwan tries to make the most of it, and after Hoya jumps over the wall and brings everybody with him, this is the moment where I thought, maybe there's a chance, but it just doesn't last anywhere near long enough, and Beitwan doesn't do any damage. Hoya doesn't do any damage.
There's no damage for Hoya to do. He is a victim of the pack. Tarzan has his 4th kill. He also got his team onto Hextech Soul Point as Bloxer was eloquently taking us through that very narrow team fight. But the reality of the situation is the gold, the dragons, everything but the grubs is in control of anyone's legend. And Thunder Talk really need to find that perfect team fight angle to get back into this game. But the way AL is playing right now, I don't think there will ever be a window of...
No, it just doesn't seem like they're going to be able to get themselves back into this game. That's the thing with these kind of compositions, right? When it's ahead, so very strong looking, but it doesn't give you that much to try to play around later on. You don't have yourself a hyper-scaling ADC to maybe try to play around. You don't have yourself a top laner who's going to get tankier and tankier and be able to buy more and more time and space for your key carries to be able to play out the game. The Camille's behind. I don't see a situation in which the Camille's going to get back ahead. 1xN has been allowed to ult once in this game, and that's what we were expecting, right? We joked about it, Grey Screen Simulator. 1xN hasn't died that much in this game, but just hasn't been allowed to play the game, and that's as good as dead for an ADC. If you're not being able to sit and do what you need to carry your team, well, unfortunately, it doesn't leave you with much recourse at all as Thunder Talk.
Passenger ADC is useless ADC, so that is the unfortunate reality for 1xN, and yeah, I'm glad you hit the point here because The real sore spot for Thunder Talk, unfortunately, really just feels like Hoya. They are struggling to find any champion combination to get the most out of him. And it's such a stark difference compared to Split 1. But back to action here. It's Tarzan waiting to hunt in these brushes once more. Dashing in and out of all these fights. Goes untargetable over the seismic shove. Love that from Tarzan. He's going to give the kill from Feather onto Hope. Hope goes legendary once more. And here comes the pack again. Satab knocked off of his tidal wave of a wall to run through. And he's just run into the brick wall that is Flandra. Seismic smash down to find the kill onto Satab. And all Hoya can do for Thunder Talk is maybe try and cut some waves down and do his best impression of the Great Escape. But AL don't care.
No, I mean, they can go chase through their jungle for him. I think they actually are going to. I think this is a mistake. There is no point here. Yeah, don't bother chasing this Camille. The Camille's not worth anything. The prize here is indeed Atakan, going to be picked up right here for AL. There's no response. You can see Betron is getting a Gromp as a consolation prize. What a sad consolation prize that is. 4-1-11 right now for Tarzan. Is just running these team fights. Hope yet to die today. And AL, they really are looking like one of the top teams in the LPL at the moment.
Back to form. A breath of fresh air for all the AL fans out there. Get the roses, the real prize with Ruinous Atakan. I mean, look at the level differences across the board. Hey, pays to be this good sometimes. Even the observers throwing us the difference in XP, and I can spell it pretty easily. Everybody on AL is in front of everybody on Thunder Talk.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Feather's not falling that far behind. That's a good one.
I can do some analysis sometimes, you know, Boxer.
Yeah.
I can.
You want my
Go
job?
for your job.
I'll try shout about the game. I'm sure that will go well. To be fair, in these team fights, Nefiri goes in is the main call for me every single time. Tarzan goes flying into the backline. And the more and more I see this new look Nefiri, the more I end up questioning why we've given the Eviscerate an untargetable.
It's the craziest. It's so funny knowing that like Riot's really like pushing down. Oh, guys, we got to take away the cleanse from Yone, right? Like, come on. There's too much skill expression. And then on the flip side, like, but Nefiri though. But Nefiri though. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's so strong. It's
my God, Hoya.
They're going to go in.
Okay, this is the power of the Camille and
Good
Talia.
ulti, there it is.
A huge bullet time. Finally, it all clicks for Thunder Talk. The first death for AL Hope maybe gives hope over to Thunder Talk. There's no Kaisa to compete with. So how much damage does anyone's legend really have in this fight? They're leaning so much on Tarzan, but you can't dive into 5 members. I don't care how strong the wolf pack is. Thunder Talk with the lifeline. The wombo hits to the tune of 3 kills.
There we go. This is the Thunder Talk that we were hoping to see in this matchup. The one that follows up on the slightest hint of a potential engage. And they're going to see what they can get off the back of this one. Going to pick themselves up this nice first tower into the mid lane. They've been unable to crack this one for so long. And they're going to pull back to get themselves a Drake right here. This is going to stop this from being Hextech Soul for AL. This game felt like it was all said and done. It's still an uphill battle for Thunder Talk. But what a way to try getting it back into it.
They bought time for Hoya's Camille. They've bought time for more items on this Talia. Tarzan doing what he can to find pressure points with that mid lane shove. But you pointed out, Bloxer, it's a lifeline. Satab, though, does nearly not get that teleport off.
Oof,
so TT,
risky.
What value do they gain out of this time? That becomes the question, because they are going to get forced out of this kind of turtle shell they've built, because Baron is up in 20 seconds. Let's watch the wombo, though. Let's soak it in first, Bloxer. We get the cinematic frame.
The engage. This is Hoya looking great, but it's that impale.
There we go.
Right there.
One.
This is why you banned the Skarner, because the impale is such a strong ability that just completely changed the landscape of that team fight. And then the fact that Fladra comes flying in to just donate over another kill, a little bit crazy. The only thing is Thunder Talk, they didn't manage to actually catch onto Tarzan, as we were talking about, that he really just gives so much extra survivability over to the champion. There's a big shutdown right now sat on Tarzan. If Thunder Talk actually want to come back into this game, they're going to need to grab it.
How far can they really push, though? Great untargetable from Tarzan. Drifts in. Beichuan can't really find his mark. Here comes Flandra drifting into the backside. Saytab having to flash over the big Bramble Smash.
No.
The 1xN bullet time gets 0 value this time round. You can see all the difference it makes in this fight. Here comes the dog.
Nice.
Great catch from Beichuan in the middle of the dash.
No
Untargetable. Way. Not enough to save him this time. 1xN trying to turn as much damage as he can on this Misfortune. Using the turret to protect him. But the Rune Prism gets the root down. It shakes to find the angle. But everything's just falling apart in this fight. Turret getting all the value for ThunderTalk, an MVP-like performance. And somehow we walk away from that even in kills with only 2 standing on either side.
You know what? When you are as far ahead as AL are, even fights are losses. That's not what you should be having happen. You're up by so much gold at this point, or at least you were. Like you said, unfortunately for 1xN, this ulti just goes completely wide. But luckily, after that previous teamfight, Beichuan and Feather had both been able to get themselves just a couple more components, getting themselves a little bit tankier, and they're actually able to stand up for a lot longer. Feather does fall eventually, but he's bought enough time for 1xN and Saytab to be able to back off, and this is another wonderful Impale. Again, we are really getting a good showing of why you should be banning the Skarner in your games.
It's even matching up into that Nefiri. Hope, I love the aggressiveness. It's why we love watching Kai'Sas in the LPL, but ramping turret damage is a hell of a drug. We don't have too much time to break down exactly what that last fight was because we're going back to the same exact dance around this Baron pit. Can ThunderTalk get enough space in these wave states to even try and get vision down? Because boy, is it dark in that river.
Really is. They at least know that the Baron isn't currently being hit, but there's always the threat of it from AL, and without anybody feeling comfortable to step up, where do you go? Beichuan gets chunked.
Oh boy, there's the bullet time, gets canceled. Flandra's right in front. Kael doesn't fall just yet. Beichuan trying to hold the front line, but it's breaking at the seams. The floodgates are coming through, and it's Hope that's looking to do it alongside the trusting pal, the man's best friend, the dog known as Tarzan. Hunted down Hoya. Down falls the TT top laner, and TT have to crawl back to their tortoise shell, hurting and bruised.
Yeah, you need to be getting these ultis off as 1xN in combination with the Impale, or at least a seismic shove. It's just not happening at this point, and this is going to be the Baron started up right now. There are still 3 members available. The damage dealers are still here for ThunderTalk.
It's burning. It's Feather that's going to try and fly in, but Saytab, and when I say they can't get close enough, Feather's trying to be a nuisance, but it's Tarzan, the spirit, the engine of AL, to sink it home behind a Shanks double kill. What a performance from anyone's legend. It may have gotten murky, but that Baron might have just put the dagger in the hearts of TT.
Yeah, double TP is going to be coming through into the bottom lane right now. AL, they are using this Baron to end. That's what they want to do. Beichuan is just going to be able to get over the wall right here. Jumped over with Tarzan, actually. Tarzan not going to be able to pick up the kill onto the Skarner right now, but it's still just going to be chasing him back underneath his Nexus towers. As these, yeah, they're just falling. I mean, look, they're going to lose out onto this inhibitor. Flandra could just tank the tower. He doesn't care.
Here we go. Another dive forward for Tarzan. Reset City. The pack is hunting for blood. And Hoya nearly falls, but that should put the polishing, finishing touches on it. AL looking to lock up the top spot, a spot in Group Ascend, and they're going to knock ThunderTalk again once more to do it. The health bars are getting close, but Flandra is just going to hit this Nexus. It doesn't even matter if the Scion dies.
Can they kill him?
If they kill him, it's still going to fall. I don't believe. I believe in Flandra. Tanks are balanced, everybody. Come on, Flandra. Oh my God, they're really not letting him get to this Nexus turret. How often does seismic shove come up? They're throwing the wall up. Flandra doesn't care. He wants the Nexus. Oh my God. He's inches away from the win, but TT won't budge. Somebody let the Scion pass through, please. Oh my God, he's got another shield up. How many more autos? Oh no, Beichuan's back. Dude, this isn't the end. Flandra, can he do it? All right, passive. No, it's not down again. No, it's not over. Oh my God. Oh man. That was like 15 seconds of Flandra getting hit by 3 people, and it still nearly didn't matter.
Oh, my stomach actually hurts from laughing. Oh my lord. I mean, the game's not over, technically.
It's over, though. It really is
most over a game with a Nexus still standing has ever been. You know how funny that was, right? Thundertalk are losing and they're laughing. Like, they're also all sat there giggling about this one. Oh.
There are people on LPL English right now that I didn't know were awake and watching that got in our communication chat to show their their laughter for that last play. I mean, that is one for the all time. Right,
I think that might be the single funniest thing I've ever watched, because it just keeps going and you're like, wait, surely he gets it, right? Surely he gets it. I've never seen a headbutt happen so often.
Or a seismic shove, like the Weaver's wall up. All right. Here we go.
Flunder, he's going again.
Here's how you do it. Go. You just realm warp behind Thundertalk. Of course, that's how it ends. It's with a realm warp. Oh, dude, it's one auto again. All right, it's over. Anyone's Legend. Top of Group B, on to Group Ascend they go. And they did it in the most hilarious fashion possible.
Oh, man. I respect Thundertalk for trying so hard to stop that game from ending, because with the Realm Warp and with the Side ulti, it was done. Like we said, it was done. They went and got themselves Soul. It's now going to show that they got themselves Hextech Soul on the sheet, and they'll be like, oh, that was nice. Look at that. Single funniest thing I've ever witnessed. Congratulations, though, to AL. We shouldn't allow how funny that was to take away from how dominant of a win it was overall.
Yeah, I mean, if the Wombo doesn't come through for Beichuan in that one dragon fight, it is about as flawless as a win as it comes. So Thundertalk still going to have to try and compete to avoid the qualifiers or any sort of crazy tiebreaker for Group Nirvana. But yeah, the prevailing thought here, Bloxer, how convinced are you that AL have shaken off the rust you dawned on them from the first time round in Group B?
Unless RNG are the AL Slayers, unless they are their actual kryptonite and we see them win again, which I would be very surprised to see, I think AL feel like they're kind of back, right? They needed to shake off the rust a little bit. I think they needed to be humbled up against RNG in that matchup that they had in the first round. My only worry for them is that they have still been drafting pretty weird, and I don't know how much that works versus the top tier teams. It works versus Thundertalk, you know, it works versus Ultra Prime. Does it work versus a BLG or a top esports? I'm not so sure about that one specifically, but at least for this group stage, it's good enough, and getting yourself into Group Ascent is the beginning, right? That's the point for these top tier teams. Some teams are going to be clawing for Group Ascent, and once they get it, wonderful. Now, for AL and those other top teams, this is just the beginning of what is their actual split, and so I don't mind them trying things out, feeling out the meta a little bit at this point.
I just love that Flandre got his one Vladimir game after the first time round, and then they lost, and AL coaches are like, put the shoulder on his hand on his shoulder. He's like, hey man, what do you think about Sion? He's played 2 Sion games. It's just the most like
Sion
turn
GT.
Brain off gameplay ever. So
other than when you're fighting to hit a Nexus, apparently.
Yeah. Do you think that's all right, here's a question for everybody out there. Is that the hardest a Sion player has ever had to focus in their life?
Yes. I think that's also the most fun anybody's ever had playing Sion. Even though you don't get the Nexus there, you're still just cackling the whole time. Like, please, it's so close. Please.
Can we give MVP to not the Alistair or the Talia, just the abilities? Can I give Headbutt Pulverize the MVP in this game?
Yeah. Headbutt is just apparently the best ability you could possibly have asked for. I mean, it's so funny what just happened that it's broken my brain for what was a genuinely brilliant AL performance. They had one team fight where it actually goes wrong for them, where they were getting a little bit over aggressive, but by that point they'd got themselves such a big lead that it really didn't end up mattering in the end. And as much as I want to keep talking about, hey, AL were awesome, I've got some more questions for Thundertalk, right?
Yeah, let's focus the shift.
First game was awesome, right? But RNG don't look like they're a particularly strong squad at the moment, other than their random win up against AL. This group really is crazy. In this one, they showed that willingness to go in like they needed to, but it felt like the composition just didn't work. Specifically, Hoya on the Camille.
Yeah. I mean, you do not win games of League of Legends when you counterpick top Camille into Scion and you lose. You will not win. You won't win solo queue games at home. You won't win whatever draft league you like to play with your friends. You're not winning on the LPL stage either. So I think Hoya, I understand why people were talking about, how much side lane really helped Hoya. And TT really have to go back to the drawing board to find some of those fixes because, I mean, we'll talk about it a bit before we get out of here, Bloxer, and I'm sure our next two awesome casters will break it down. But every place outside of first place now is an absolute dogfight. But right now, let's once again soak in the Anyone's Legends dominance here. 4-1. Oh, where do you go with MVP? Is it Tarzan? I think this time.
I feel like Tarzan picking it up would make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Hope was having another baller of a game, but he did die, and apparently that's the standard to which we hold Hope, is deathless games with quadra kills in.
On a melee range AD carry as if you died?
On a melee range AD carry, right. Exactly. Now, I just think that as much as we have been seeing this Neferi a lot, as much as it does have a lot of really good things about it, it is also quite tricky to play out. You have to make it work in the early stages of the game, and we got to see exactly that. The early kills were going over to Tarzan. He was constantly jumping forwards. He was making this champion look like it was rift walking around, just not able to be caught at any one point, using that E to great effect to just not get caught, not die. This one specifically that we're watching right now, he should have died by all rights. Look how close he is to dying in this one after getting caught with the Impale. But the Neferi just so annoying to try to kill. So much healing. That's one auto attack, genuinely one auto attack away from death. So I would personally give it to Tarzan right here. At the same time, AL, it was a very complete team game.
Outside of this one fight, right, where the Impale came together with the bullet time, but everything outside of that was polished. Flandra on a full tank is very, very impressive to me, showing his champion flexibility. We've talked a lot on the unofficial LPL English broadcast about his champion pool diversity. Good to see him get on the Scion game, perform well. A lot of things are clicking for AL right now. The only name that kind of fell silent, not for a bad reason, was Shanks, but this Rise was valuable. The Realm Orbs were there. He scaled up to infinity. All right. Boss, before you make the next point, I want to see if I can play a fun game. Right. Let's time once we see Flandra start hitting Nexus and how long it takes for him to die. Okay, let's play a fun game. We're gonna watch.
I like this. I really hope they play the
Okay,
whole
he's
thing.
hitting it. Oh, I missed it.
Yeah.
All right, he's hitting it.
Right.
Let's see how long, everybody.
Here a while. We are going to be here a while.
He's still hitting it right there. By the way, he's down there. He's hitting the Nexus while his entire team is dying.
He's not doing anything but hitting it.
Oh,
boo.
Man.
I am going to time this out as soon as we're off. I'm going to time this one out. You can see right here, though, he needed revenge on the Nexus tower. Comes flying in. I think he does get... No, he doesn't quite get the last auto off. It would have been very poetic if he'd have gotten the last auto off onto that Nexus.
Yeah.
It just survived for so long.
I can't blame the LPL for not highlighting that because
it would have been a full
It would have
minute.
taken like 40. It would have been like, full minute, 45 seconds was my bet. So, you know what? I'm sure the clip will be on Twitter. I'm sure the clip will be on Twitter. Bloxer, you can add him on socials to see if he can get the official time for you.
I'm going to time it. The second this is done,
I'm holding to
this
it.
will be timed. Because it's such a funny way to play out a fight. And it kind of, in my mind, and I think, hang on.
MVP?
The MVP.
Player of the game. Ah! All right. I mean, the Scion was like an immovable rock, right? And you start to ask how much space does the Neferi get, the Kaisa get, if you don't have a 7,000 HP tank Scion. So, Flandra, you got the highlight of the LPL split so far, and you also earned the player of the game. Can't hate it.
Oh, no. I'm very happy with that one. There was only one questionable decision where he goes and ults in after his team had already all died, but it was, other than that, a very good Scion game, buying so much space. Like we've been saying, once you can buy your ADC, your mid laners, just enough time to do what they need to, something ThunderTalk were not able to do, it makes games so much easier. As much as it is sad to see a player of his caliber being sat with Scion duty, boy, is he making the most of it.
Boy, is he indeed. The AL making the most of their slate to start here. Our first 3 games are done with AL grabbing their spot in Group Ascend, but 2 through 4 are still very much up for grabs with 3 teams, and I have seen that our casters are very prepared for every single tiebreaker this group could potentially throw your way. So make sure to give some love as myself and Bloxer do step down for the first 3 games. It was an absolute hilarious bout of fun with you, Bloxer, a bow to end with the Scion. But we're going to throw to a short break. Make sure to give some love to Grapes and Trouble as they step in here. Make sure to give Grapes a bit of a good morning as the American resident on this one. We'll see you guys again when we see you. Enjoy Ultra Prime taking on RNG in the next game here to close out Group B.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to LPL English. A big thank you to Slayer and Bloxer for holding down the fort for the first 3 games, but we are here to finish things off and maybe even get some tiebreakers towards the end of things. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Trouble. We're casting for the first time. Very excited about that. And we've got our last 3 games of Group B here in the LPL split 2 placements. Ultra Prime versus RNG, and I'm hearing Trouble. We're going to get straight into the draft, so no time for any of the quick stuff here.
Listen,
we're going to get right into it.
We love that, getting straight into the thick of things, and particularly when we're looking at both the drafts, I think it's very important for RNG, since they do have Milky when he's looking for a redemption arc, if you will, after the end of last year. We're looking for a very strong mid-jungle duo for the side of RNG. I think this is how they managed to take AL down as well, for that pure pressure. And obviously seeing how Ultra Prime will respond to this. Is it going to be a Gwen B1? Shocker!
Yeah, seeing the champion not get banned at this point is more surprising than
true.
seeing it being first picked. So is a flexible option here for either Wonjong or Junhao. It's going to be responded to, though, by a Rumble Sejuani combo, two other very powerful picks in the meta, just to set the stakes for what this game actually means. Remember, Ultra Prime won this matchup earlier on in the group stage, and RNG at this point at 1-3 must win in order to keep themselves in the conversation for avoiding a spot in the Ascension group.
Also, that was a great card collection from Milky Way cards that this person had in the crowd. Now, I'm looking at this Sejuani and I sipped my coffee because I don't want to speak too soon. I feel like when you lock in Rumble Sejuani, I called it a wording Sejuani without a purpose. However, if right now you lock in something like a Yone, potentially for Tangyuan in the mid lane, then he has a buddy to play that mid-jungle duo that we really hyped up earlier on.
Yeah, we were hyping up that mid-jungle, and then immediately Milky Way locks in that Sejuani. So maybe not exciting unless we get that Yone that you were talking about. But the response for Ultra Prime being an Akali locked in for Saber. I know this is a guy that plays a lot of different champions, whether it was here or in the LDL. So should be a very explosive topside for UP overall.
I am loving what I'm seeing. I am a certified Vi hater. I don't want to see this champion be won unless it's played by the Bao top lane, like full AD, glass cannon, Infinity Edge. However, right here, this Vi is not alone. She's got Akali and she's got Gwen to dive in with her. So you actually have bodies that commit themselves in the all-in. I feel like RNG are going to have to take the task of maybe removing some AD carries that really like to go in, or some carries that are very defensive, such as the Kai'Sa that really likes following up with things like the Vi, or even things like the Ashe or the Jhin that likes setting up for far away.
The Renata ban here on the other side. I was kind of expecting maybe Niket even wanting to play something like that with all the hard engage that UP have already set up, but it looks like they are prioritizing some other things. As the bot lane, obviously the priority here, the matchup between Wako and Jachi should be very interesting, as well as seeing a little bit more of Xiaoxia, a new addition to this roster for split number 2.
Let's see what the last ban is going to be here. They're going to stick. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. Kai'Sa makes a lot of sense for RNG as well, if they want to play sort of like a diving composition together with the Rumble and stuff like that. But they're going to ban the whole duo. Kalista, Renata, out of the way. Things still like the Nautilus, the Leona, still very prominent in terms of engaging. The Rel, all up for grabs for both teams.
Man, I'm very curious to see how RNG specifically approaches the way that they want to set up their bot lane, because, as you said originally, 3 heavy dive topside champions here for UP. Do they try to combat that, or do they try to just like add fire to the flame by picking up something like the Kai'Sa, which has currently been left unbanned? The Misfortune is taken away, and it's immediately a Rel lock-in for Niket. We are flying through this draft here in game number 4, Trouble.
I've never seen an R5 AD carry in a very, very long time, which is only you lock in a safe AD carry, hard shoving AD carry, and then you want to counterpick support. But right here, we have the Rel coming through first. Of course, you don't have the chance of playing the Ezreal with an enchanter to hard shove, but right here, it could potentially be something like a Kai'Sa plus, oh, that's actually very clever. Xayah would have been that one champion that I'd say, hey, Akali, Gwen, Vi, diving backline. Xayah is one of the best anti-dive AD carries. Ultra Prime is just going to straight up take that away.
So it's a takeaway, and also, you know, a pretty strong pick for Wako, especially if it's paired up with this Rakan in the 2v2. Can allow for, you know, Junhao to have another lane to play through if you are Ultra Prime. Remember, they lost their first game of the day. It's been a couple of hours for them to sit back, relax, and try to lock back in for the remainder of this. Still have an opportunity to end up in the top half of this group, but we'll see if this is the composition that will do it for them, as that's the Kai'Sa for Jachi that you were talking about being locked in on that R5. He has had a terrific go of things on this champion. You think back to that matchup that they had against Anyone's Legends.
Oh, yeah, that was a quadra kill on that Kai'Sa when he played that. However, it's not going to be the easiest task for him, because once he gets locked down by Vi, it's not like you can ult to the other side of the fight, because you're actually locked into that CC from the Vi. So it gets a little bit dicey in terms of how he wants to play the team fights. I was honestly expecting to see him potentially a Jhin for RNG down the bottom, sort of set up for your Yone and your Rumble going far in. You're also very safe from the dive. But right here, whenever you have dive champions and melee champions like Akali, they do technically really struggle through that laning phase, and this Akali will be no different. Level 3, Yone suddenly becomes a champion that can take really strong trades and push out the wave, so I can't wait to see how these priorities will break through that mid lane, because Milky Way has a lot to say on that Sejuani. You can very early impact lanes because you have a lot of setup everywhere for yourself.
Yeah, especially in that mid lane. with the Yone, where you can, get that Ever Permafrost passive stacked up instantly. Yeah. That is definitely an angle for RNG to attack from. On the other side, though, Ultra Prime, they have that Zyricon bot lane. I feel like they are going to have the advantage early in the push on that 2v2. And we're going to get explosive team fights, I think, from the start here in this game, Trouble. I know some of these LPL games have been a little bit more slower, especially early on in the group stage. But the way that these compositions have been set up, there's just no way, right? We're going to get some early action.
I feel like we're gonna have to wait for like at least an item. I feel like Akali really thrives on that first item spike. And if you listen to like a lot of OTPs on Akali, they're like, okay, make sure you get out of that laning phase as easy as possible. Do not die. Farm as much as you can and get that first item. Once that first item is locked in, then we're talking game.
And we are right into that game, as you said. Ultra Prime up against RNG here in the LPL Group B placement stage of Split 2 in 2025. Remember, this is a matchup that UP won earlier on in the group stage, and RNG need the win in order to even up that score and keep themselves alive here in Group B.
I'm just going to say that for RNG, they have a tough task when it comes to potentially even getting themselves into that group ascension. And it doesn't necessarily all rely on them to get potentially that tiebreaker, that chance to make it into the group ascension. However, it does start with them, and that's the most important thing. They've got the next 2 games. If they can pick up a victory versus Ultra Prime, and then a victory versus AL, which have been the only team to do that so far in this group, and the last team that will have the chance to do that as well, then we're talking game. But RNG, it starts with you, and it potentially ends with you as well.
So not necessarily controlling their whole destiny, but they have a good amount of it in their hands. As you say, it starts with the win here against UP. Take a look at the summoner spells overall before we get right into things. They have double combat summoners up in the top side. That's an exhaust for Wenjang, and that's an ignite flash combo here for Xiaoshu. So we're gonna get a little crazy up there, maybe.
Actually, I'm very happy to see the grasp coming out of Tangyuan right here. You're playing into a melee matchup. You are going to get a lot of those procs from grasp. And also something very interesting is the lethal tempo over on Jachi, over in the bot lane of that Kaisa. You usually see a lot more DP Kaisa, especially when you're playing versus very squishy targets, which Ultra Prime have drafted pretty much 5 of them on the other side. But it also gives you the gist that this Kaisa is going to be diving in. You want that Kraken Slayer. You want that Rage Blade to actually get into the backline and assassinate somebody on the 4th auto attack.
Level 2 kind of shared here between these 2 bot lanes to start things off. We see same side clears for the junglers as well. They're both pathing towards that top side. Makes sense given the potential explosiveness of that matchup up there between the Gwen and the Rumble. So far, Wenjang winning out on that one. It's actually Milky Way getting the accelerated clear, at least to start things off after taking down those single camps in the jungle on the bot side.
And I do really like the Ignite that you mentioned earlier as well, as we're looking at the Rumble versus Gwen matchup, because you can actually create some pressure early on. However, the Exhaust, as also mentioned earlier, could actually dissuade situations where the Kaisa dives in the backline. Hold on. Junhao is going to get spotted right here, but Milky Way has to pull off because both his Yone and his Rumble are under tower. Going to get spotted right here. A little bit of pressure in the jungle, but without any buddies in the jungle, it's very hard to contest that.
Yeah, I don't think Junhao realized he got spotted until that ward was just placed by Milky Way, but instead, it's going to be Wenjang actually forcing Xiaoxu to flash away. However, now the Rumble is overheated. Flame Smitter comes out, the flash followed by Milky Way will force Junhao to use the summoner spell of his own. All of a sudden, RNG's top side could be in a bit of trouble. However, Wenjang's going to dash forward. Who will get first blood? It's going to be Ultra Prime picking it up. Can Xiaoxu find a trade?
No way.
The Electro Harpoon comes out. The heat is stacked up nicely. Any more crowd control could mean Xiaoxu's demise. He finds 1 kill, but Wenjang will finish the job. 2 for 1 for Ultra Prime.
An absolute scrap over the red buff and a little bit of Krugs over on the top side quadrant of Milky Way's jungle. However, it's a 1 for 1 for both the top laners. They both managed to pick up a kill. And as you will see, Rumble will be able to catch up with the wave over on the top side of the map. However, I feel like Milky Way is going to have to help a little bit. As I can see, from what little I can see from the minimap, this wave is going to push, which means that Rumble is going to get overextended. That's why you see Milky Way actually staying over on the top side of the map. He needs to help his top laner push out that wave because he will be under stress for gank.
And you can see immediately that means that Junhao is able to claim that topside scuttle and maybe even be around the area for a potential play as well. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, Grand Entrance lands at the Jachi. He's forced to pop the barrier early as Niket went for a bit of a roam towards that mid lane. It allows for the Ultra Prime bot lane to get a plate, and they are off to a fantastic start to this early game.
Milky Way still playing warding Sejuani towards the top side of the map. Let's watch the scrap one more time. Very nice flash from Shashu right here to get away from the Vi Q. And I actually felt like with Ignite and the exhaust being down, you actually win this iteration. But here's where you see the value coming through from the Vi, the shields that come through, the proc on the third auto attack, as well as getting the buffs off of that Sejuani, which means the red buff is no longer stacking. It has been transferred over to Ultra Prime. Overall, a great start from the Ultra Prime squad.
And I wonder if Xiaoxiu had a little bit more heat and was able to get the extra attack speed, the damage on his passive a little bit earlier.
He's still there,
would have meant
ladies
anything.
and gents.
As
He's
Milky Way,
still there.
Yeah, he's still trying to bail his top laner out. You can see there's a 15 CS lead built up for the Gwen in this 1v1 matchup, and all 5 players currently on UP are up in gold over their respective opponents.
Yeah, this wave is absolutely screwed for Shashu over on the tops of the map. Luckily for him, Junhao has kind of sniffed that Milky Way is going to be helping his top laner for quite a while to actually fix his wave towards the tops of the map. So he's going to take a pretty free Dragon over the bots of the map. We usually see the handshake between the Void Grabs and the Dragon early on, but this is an even earlier Dragon. It's going to go down even before Void Grabs even spawn. You've got perma priority over on the bot side for Ultra Prime, and this is perfect because now you're going to get to reset with the Zyra Khan, head towards the top side of the map, and potentially get both neutral objectives for yourself.
And oh man, I mean, it looked like a 2-for-1. Oh, that's not too bad if you're RNG, right? But all of a sudden, you look at the scoreboard. It's a 1,500 gold lead. You know, Xiaoxiu's not in a good place up here on the top side. Bot lane's gotten 2 plates. It's suddenly looking like a very dangerous situation for RNG Trouble, and they have the composition that wants to scrap pretty heavily, right? Once you hit that one item with the Yone, with the Rumble, but they're not going to be able to do it if they're down so far.
Yeah, and also if you look at Tangyuan, he's gone for Hexdrinker. He's actually scared of the Gwen plus the Akali, the duo that's going to be jumping the backline. So he has to go towards a more defensive route to begin with, and then go towards Blade of the Ruined King. It's very funny because I call Yone a one-item wonder. Blade of the Ruined King is the only item he needs to actually become a champion, but that has also been delayed now from a really great start from Ultra Prime.
I mean, he has to go Hexdrinker, right? Just because of how worried he is about these solo laners right now. And that is certainly going to delay even more. What RNG want to do is they've already given up the first 3 grubs as well. Junhao able to do a good job at controlling those neutral objectives so far in this game. And yeah, things looking very good for this Ultra Prime team, Trouble, a team that just is coming off of a loss earlier on, and we're going to maybe see RNG try to force a play on this top side.
I mean, for Ultra Prime, it's also do or die. They need to take that win off of RNG, because if RNG just go 2-0 in the next 2 games, they do have a chance of taking Ultra Prime's position right here. So it's all or nothing for them as well. They need to try and make their way as high up in the standings as possible, try to guarantee themselves a group ascension. And so far, it's been going great in that early game. Again, we really pinned our eyes on the mid-jungle duo. Saber has a Tangyuan's number in the entirety of laning phase. Tangyuan has been playing underneath the tower, which means that Sejuani Yone combo that we really wanted to see hasn't necessarily come into fruition yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make a play when you're getting pressured on all sides as well, right? For Milky Way, it's the second time that Junhao's just been right up in his business in the enemy jungle, and this time I think he might have a little bit more success in taking this blue buff away. So not really any opportunities for Milky Way, who, again, is like the star player that we've been talking about for this RNG team to do anything in this game and to help his team get ahead in any meaningful fashion.
I mean, to be fair, it is just so difficult to play Sejuani when you do not have prior lanes. And now you can see how a champion like Vi really does get unlocked when you have bot pushing, top pushing, mid pushing. You can pretty much be free to do whatever you want on the map. And I feel like Junhao has been taking this opportunity so well. Every single time he's got priority 3 bot lane, he's invading the bot quadrant. He knows that his Rakan will be there. Does he need him to? And you also deprive Milky Way for so much experience. He has been ahead for the entirety of the game right now. And only now Milky Way does he get that level 6, which means that Ultra Prime were chilling in their lanes earlier on. There wasn't much setup. You're not really worried about setup from Rumble or setup from Yone, but Sejuani is really, really dangerous, and you need to play around that vision that you have around that boar and the lady that rides the boar. So right now, I think Ultra Prime will be a little bit more aware in terms of where the Sejuani whereabouts are.
And so now if you are RNG and you have this Glacier Prison for Milky Way, like what lane do you want to attack right now? Because it seems kind of tough from all angles, right? You're down 10 plus CS in all three. Specifically this top side is really getting ugly here for Xiaoshu. Like which lane are you looking for the synergy? Is this still the Yone, despite the fact that he's been pushed in repeatedly?
I honestly think you're looking to scrap. Minute and a half until the next dragon, and you could try to play through that bot side of the map. You do have a couple of components on your Kai'Sa. Hexdrinker could be clutch to actually take a little bit more of an extended trade with the Akali and the Gwen popping down that bot side of the map. And just as a reminder, there is no mobility summoner spell for that Gwen. So potentially if you get her down bot lane for a skirmish, you can choose to play over there. However, the Gwen is going to find you before you find her, apparently.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that just shows how strong Wenjang is right now. Not afraid to go underneath the enemy in a 2v1 close to that tier 1 turret. I guess he knows that Jinhao is nearby, but really good start to this early game for Wenjang. I feel like we knew him coming into the split as somebody who is very dominant in lane, and now he's going to get some help as well with the rest of the squad pulling up.
Oh, they saw Milky Way back under tower. Xiaoshu, that's all you, buddy.
Yep, here comes that Vi ultimate. It's combined with just a boatload of crowd control. That's the feat of Warfare picked up, and Ultra Prime off to a terrific start to this early game.
Oh, there's just no lanes pushing for RNG. It's just so depressing to watch. Milky Way had to reset right there to get ready for the Void Grubs and the Drake spawn. Tanyon was catching a wave. Jachi has been consistently pushed underneath his own tower down the bot lane. He cannot get away. Xiaoshu getting dived over on the top side of the map. Does not have TP. Will lose a bunch of golden experience on the tower. Oh my, it just does. We said this is where RNG starts, and Jachi might have something to say.
Okay, actually uses the Killer Instinct to prevent that Blade Caller from doing too much just yet. There comes what a flash from Wako to make sure that those feathers fly right into the back of the Kai'Sa.
Jachi tried to outplay this, and I feel like he played this